Entombed for 3,000 years, wrapped growing in me.
All right, folks. We're right back 300. We had like almost 400 people, but hopefully the other 100 will come back. And like I said before, just in case you missed it, this isn't the infamous Leviathan that they keep talking about. This is a sailor's cross. All right. That's what that is. And it's a unique piece because I had somebody make it. I wasn't really happy with it at first, the way they made it. I really want, thank you for that donation, Kelly. I really wanted it a little bit different. And this is what they did. And I just accepted it. I don't know. I probably should have said no, but I just didn't. I don't know. I always thought the sailor's cross was very pretty. And if you're a sailor and you're out there in the middle of the ocean, the only thing you have is God. So, so also here's my shirt. It says it's just a phase because you can't see the rest of it. So somebody had asked me on the last stream, so I just figured I'd tell you now. It's obviously a werewolf because tonight's show, and I'm sorry for the previous show, whatever. I just had to say what I had to say because they watch us religiously. We're their religion. They commit idolatry. They really do by watching us. So I just felt like, you know what, I know he's watching, so I had to say what I had to say because they've done what they've done to slow our growth. So if you could, please, like I said, folks, do everything you can to help us because they have stopped our growth by mass reporting, and they keep doing it. And that's why we're debating about not necessarily leaving YouTube permanently, but just going and moving more toward Rumble. So because those people don't know how to use it, and because over there they can't report you and do all kinds of other crap. It's a whole different ball game, and so it's what they do. And most of their little buddies aren't going to go over there either because they don't have the audience. But anyway. I had to say what I had to say when people started talking about my mother, things, and I'm really sick of it, folks. We're tired of it. And we've done nothing to deserve all this. Nothing to these people to deserve all of this nightmare that they've unleashed on us. So they'll get theirs in the end. Don't worry. Justice. They're always talking about justice. Justice will be served. I'm 100% feel that in my heart. It will be against these people. But so here's what tonight, I got something really special tonight. And I was just like thinking, there are a multitude of encounters that people had given me over the years, and they were on another show, on another platform. Give me 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Work. Hold on. All right, something's going on with work. I can hear Anthony in there. So sick of work too. So there was someone whose story I told. His name was Clint, and that's all that I gave. I never told his full name or whatever. And I told it on another show. It was back, a long time ago, several years now. I can't believe in April, coming up next month on my mother's birthday, April 13th, will actually be. It'll be the first the episode that we did. I think we recorded it on my mother's birthday. I don't know if we dropped it on my mother's birthday, but the show actually came into being in March of 2019. PRT, Paranormal Round Table. Thank you for that donation, man. We appreciate that more than you could know right now. And so we made the decision to create the show, and it was something we've been talking about in like way back before 2019 and 2018. And we were talking about it. Then I got really ill in 2018. I ended up in the hospital for several days. And then in December of 2018, we revisited it. And then me and Armando talked about it again in January. Then we started buying the equipment, everything we needed in February. And then in March, we decided, hey, how are we going to do this? The name, we went through all this different stuff. We did all this research, we made all these connections. And then April, we launched the show. So that's kind of how it went. But I was still doing work on another show. And I was up until a certain thing happened in 2021. I was still okay with that person that runs that particular show. In 2021 was the year my mother died. And that was when things, kind of came off the rails. But there was a story that I did, or a story that I covered that I did for somebody who had an experience. His name was Clint. And Clint was a logger up in far northern Canada. And I recently talked to him because I want to start going back and retelling some of those encounters on here on my channel, right? So I don't know exactly how much time this is going to take, but there are a couple things I want to get to. There's another woman named Aaliyah, and Aaliyah is a person who had a very horrific encounter in Saskatchewan. I don't want to mispronounce the name of this lake.
That's one Mars over at Bishop Marmont.
All right, sorry, folks. That was something that he didn't realize. I guess we were on, and he was talking about work. That has nothing to do with you guys. Where did I put the name of this place? The name of it is, I'm trying to make sure I get the name correct. There's so many lakes out there. Okay. So it's called Lac L'Orange, like L'Orange Lake, basically. So Lac L'Orange, that's where she had her encounter. Now, if you think back, going back to November when we had the Thanksgiving, it was like right after Thanksgiving. I think it was the day after Thanksgiving, and I had a horrible kidney stone. And it might have been I think it was Saturday after Thanksgiving. I think. I'm not 100%. But I had my cousin Tim come on, and he talked about something that happened to him in Mount Vernon, Texas. This is all going to come together, folks. Okay. So what happened to Tim, he came on the show and he talked about buying a house and then doing a bunch of remodel work and then flipping it and turning a profit. If you remember Tim, he's a big burly guy. He's about my height, maybe bigger, physically. He got a huge beard. My family is large people on my dad's side. And surprisingly, on my mother's side, there is some tallness. You see Anthony, he's 6'4". Okay, so both sides of my family are pretty big people. My mom's family, they're not little, short, small Hispanic people. They're sort of tall and lanky. And so my dad's side, they're just big, big people, broad-shouldered, whatever. There aren't too many pipsqueaks in my dad's side of the family. So you remember Tim, right? I don't know if you do or not. Maybe if you tell me in the comments, you can remember. Amy Krill says she remembers. No, Deborah Mueller says she remembers. So this was very similar to this, but it started with Clint. Now, Clint is not from Canada. He's from the United States. In fact, he's from Michigan. So when he goes back home to Michigan and tells people what happened to him, they're just like, okay, well, yeah, that's like the Michigan Dogman. So unbeknownst to me, for the last few years, he's just gone crazy researching it whenever he has time. Now, he does a lot of work. He's even gone overseas and done logging and stuff, and he's even worked in China. And so he comes back and he's like, dude, 2 years ago, he messaged me, and I didn't know who it was. I just saw Clint 8X something, some kind of name. And I thought, who is this guy? And he's like, you told my story. I've told hundreds of people like I've told hundreds of stories, and a lot of them don't listen to the show. So I don't know. He was not aware that I had a channel. Now, of course, he reaches out to this other guy, and the guy's like, yeah, he doesn't tell him. He's not going to give him anything. So he messages me on Facebook, and then he starts to go through my Facebook, and he sees PRT, realizes that I have a show, and he's been binge watching it for the last couple of years. The Facebook connection that I had made, a connection with him on Facebook, it had gotten hacked. And so I was talking to somebody that from who knows where. Okay. It happens. And you're not really. And so this person was kind of like pulling me along saying, oh, yeah, they made up some crap and then had nothing to do with what we were talking about. So finally, we get in touch. We actually talk. The guy is now actually living up in Montana. Okay. And he's doing work up there. And he tells me, he said, since he had that encounter, he's had 2 others, which this encounter happened up in far northern Saskatchewan. There was a logging camp that he was working at. So I'm going to start off by telling that story. Now, I have not gone back into the archives, and I have not gone back and listened to this. I had a little recorder that I used at that time. Don't know where it's at. I had 3 or 4 of them. Armando ended up with a couple of them. Tony had one, and I think Kiem took the other. I don't know who's got them. People who work with us and work for us here at PRT. I lost them all. But anyways, I've had several. All right. I think I left one at Ken Gerhardt's house. So I don't. Who knows? Ken's probably using it. That's probably that's probably the one he used to record me one day when we talked. Okay. I don't know. Who knows? It looked familiar, and I was like, I think I might have left it there or whatever. I don't remember how that went. But we were interviewing people for the Dogman book at that time, Ken and I, and a couple other people. So anyways, what ends up happening, this guy gets in touch with me. He says, look, I got this friend, and we'll call her L because she actually works for like the forestry department or something like that. So I don't want to give it away, but she was really cool. Now, I didn't have a long drawn out conversation with her, and our politics are pretty even, but she says, look, I'm working for, and I don't want anything. Maybe in the future we can talk about what I know. And I said, do you know about the Dogman phenomenon? She goes, I don't know about Dogman, but I know that there are these Wolverine type creatures, which is what she said. Now, when you hear the word Wolverine, you're going to think of this little animal, this like it's akin to a pine marten or whatever. That's not what we're talking about. Wolverine, the word actually means wolf-like. That's what that is. And funny enough, the mascot from Michigan and the university is a Wolverine, but they don't even exist in Michigan anymore. My voice is kind of going out. Everything okay?
Yeah, I just had to coordinate some stuff in the other room.
All right, so here we go. So Anthony's back. So and Tony has to work tonight, unfortunately. But here's what's happening, right? So I talked to this person L, and I said, since you work for the forestry department, and like I said, just give me a number. I said, I won't say your name. I won't say I won't say your name at all until you're ready to talk about it. And I said, it's perfectly fine. And I said, how many people would you say you have had, and just in your area of Saskatchewan, of that northern Saskatchewan? Now, if you looked at a map of Canada, it's like half water. I never even noticed that. Like I was looking at the map the other day, and I was going like, why is there so much? It's like because of the glaciers when they melted, it just left all of these pristine, beautiful lakes. Right. So you have all these beautiful places, and they're inhabited by a plethora of wildlife. And I told her, I said, how many would you say? She started to throw the numbers of Bigfoot in there too. She said hundreds. I said, well, I'm talking, okay. I said, are you talking about Bigfoot as in cryptid, phenomena? I said cryptid wolf-like phenomena. She goes, well, they kind of blend together because some of them seem to be like a Bigfoot with a wolf-like head. Some of them seem to be just upright wolves, and sometimes we'll get reports of just Bigfoot. She goes, of course, we get a lot of reports of Bigfoot. And I told her about, what happened to Clint. She says, yeah, I know who he is. He actually got in contact with someone, with the authorities, and said that there had been some people causing problems. He didn't word it the way that it really happened. But her husband has taken more than a passing interest in this, and has actually gone out into the woods on many occasions to camp and to try to record sounds and get, information, because he's a Bigfooter. I call him a Bigfooter. But along the way of him doing this research, he started to run into these other creatures. And they weren't just Bigfoot. They were wolf-headed, wolf-like creatures. But then there were these other things too that looked almost like bears. Now there's bears up there everywhere. But she said these things were like bears mixed with a gorilla. If just to put it, So Elle, very, very good source of information. And I thank goodness that her husband is into the whole Bigfoot phenomena, because otherwise she probably wouldn't take more than a passing interest, or she's taken more of an interest in it. Now, here's the thing. 2 years from now, she says in 2 years she'll be eligible for retirement, and she's going to be done, less than 2 years, actually. She'll be done with it. She goes, and I can say whatever I want. But the current state of affairs in Canada and the government, not so, So you have this other person, and she says, my husband's friend was married at one time to this woman who is a survivalist, off-grid type person. Her name is Aaliyah. And they all kind of know each other. Now, she met Clint. Elle met Clint because of the report that was filed of the nuisance problems, whatever. And they have to have these, I guess, contracts the way that they do, and the forestry department has to approve it. But in that region, there were multiple people complaining of these, I don't know what you would call them, intruders coming into their camp. One person claimed that a giant, tall, hairy-like creature threw a 10-foot log that had already been cut end to end, and that this log weighed somewhere around 600 pounds. And it was tossed like a spear at them, smashing part of their vehicle and ruining it and forcing them to get it repaired. Then they found sabotage, which they thought was an act of eco-terrorism, is what they call it, eco-terrorist. And so what they did was they said somebody came in and tore up a bunch of stuff. One of the things they did, they tore the track off of one of their bulldozers. Now, it didn't look like it was done with tools. So I thought, wow. So somebody or something is strong enough to go and tear the track off of a bulldozer. That's pretty incredible. That takes some power to do something like that, right?
It's playing with it like a Tonka truck.
Yeah, they're just destroying it, whatever. Now, that happened like 20 years ago, like literally 2004. So that was a long time ago. But what happened to this person, Aaliyah, it's very similar. Let me get my notes here, folks, so I don't lose my place. It's very similar to what happened to my cousin Tim, and I thought that was very interesting. Now, when they compared notes to the creatures that were being seen by Clint, because Clint came forward and talked to her husband and said, look, this is what I saw. They said, hey, there's this woman, Aaliyah, and they compared notes, and it was spot on. And the area wasn't that far. It was miles, about 60 or maybe more. Let me see. kilometers. I hate the kilometers. You got to sit there and kind of.
I think it's like a kilometer is there's roughly two, give or take kilometers in a mile, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So it'd be over that. It'd be over 60, maybe 70 miles almost. But it wasn't that far away from where Aaliyah's incident happened. Now, without further ado, I will tell you Clint's story. And like I said, I'm telling this from memory. I didn't go back to the notes and try to re-listen to anything. So if there are a little bit of inaccuracies from the original story, I apologize. And I apologize to you, Clint. I'm just telling it from memory. I remember what he said, and he told me this story twice. Now, back then I had the time and the luxury of hearing somebody's story 2 or 3 times. Not so much anymore. But I remember what he said, and he said that he was working with a logging company, and they had a government contract, and they were clearing out this woods. Now, a couple nights, and this is me, I did talk to him, though. He didn't go over the entire encounter, but we talked because he had a couple more encounters since then, all while doing the same job in different parts. But I think that once you see one of these things, it gives you that, you can see it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I don't know what that is. I think it's something literally mental, not just spiritual, but like something mental that it opens up a doorway in your mind, and now you see it. Your grandmother, Anthony, used to always talk about once you see things, you can see things,
Yeah.
you know. So my mother was very like that. You know, she's like, if you see it, you'll see it again. That's just how it goes, right? I would say this. Yeah, somebody said 1.6 kilometers in a mile. When I talked to him, he said that there had been a couple days before some guys that had claimed to have seen something with red eyes, very tall, 7 to 8 feet tall, staring at them from the tree line, and it was making them very unnerved. Now, they had these giant trucks. I'm not even going to call it a truck. It's like some kind of, it looks like something the Anunnaki would drive around. Okay. I mean, they're humongous, these big, giant trucks. And he said that these trucks, they had to use them to drive through that heavily wooded, heavily forested. Thank you for becoming a member, folks. Do yourself a member and get your name in green. If your name is in green, then you can be entered into the giveaway. And he said that these trucks, they were very large and they sat up really high. And you had to have a ladder, like to get up into them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you could pull the ladder up. You know, you could get it, you know, once you got it up, you could just raise it up and it locks in place. And so that's not what this thing did, but it was like 8 feet up there. And if I remember correctly, the whole story, and like I said, he told me a little bit of it, refreshing it. It was a terrifying encounter. He said there were 2 of them, 2 trucks, 3 guys, and they decided to stay there because getting back to their main camp, which was 20 kilometers away, which doesn't even sound like that far if you have a big truck you can drive, right?
Yeah.
But the forest is so thick, you're knocking down and destroying the timber, and they don't want to destroy the timber. They want to cut it
Mm-hmm.
and use it. So you're knocking over stuff, you know what I mean? And so getting those trucks in there, and then there's a pathway, and he says, and you have to go so slow, it takes forever. Going 20 miles or 10 miles in that thing could take an hour, depending upon how bad the brush and the rock is. So he says, typically for that place, not so bad. He goes, you could probably do it in like, you know, an hour and a half. He's like, but the pathway had recently had logs falling, you know, laying the dead wood was falling, and they'd have to clear it and all this stuff. And you don't want to risk messing up the tires and all this other. So he goes, we decided that we were just going to stay the night at the logging camp. Right. So they go to sleep. He goes, and in my truck, right, I had no gun. There was no weapon. If I remember correctly, he had like a flare gun. But there was a gun, a rifle in the guys behind him. They had a rifle. Or maybe he had a pistol. I don't remember. I just remember he didn't use it. But he says in the middle of the night, he feels the truck move, kind of going back and forth. And he's like thinking, man, he wakes up. He's sleeping in the floorboard. And he's like, the wind on this thing is really kicking, to be moving this humongous, tons and tons of weight of this giant truck, this logging truck. Thank you for the donations, guys. Greatly appreciate it. Abe, what's up, man? Abe, spiritual encrypted encounters with Abe Cius. Great guy. And check out his show. It's always good. And then we have another one here. Thank you, Miguel. He says, hi, Josh, Nelly, Tony. It's been a super long minute. And wanted to pop in and say, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. So this truck, he was laying down in it, and he hears something kind of like a noise by the window. And he goes, I had a blanket. He goes, and it wasn't winter times. He wasn't freezing. It was even there, though, up there by where he was at. Summer's cool. Summer's not, it's like in the 70s, 80s or whatever at the most. 80s is hot. And so if I remember correctly, it was like summertime. They said the mosquitoes were bad. That's the only thing. He just remembered that. And he looks, he pulls the blanket down a little bit, and he looks, and he sees this wolf-headed creature like really quickly. And he was like, what in the hell was that? Now, he had heard other people talk about seeing Bigfoot-like and wolf-like creatures. He didn't really believe in any of it. He did hear some noises at night, and there were some weird things that had gone on. And also, he got me in touch with another guy. And I'm going to get into that guy's stuff, too, because that guy had an encounter at that same camp. But that's for later. But anyway, he sees this thing standing there, and he's like, how tall does this thing have to be able to look in my window? So he's laying there, and this thing goes around to the other side, and he hears something kind of crawl and move and make noise, and he looks up behind him, and he sees something there. At that point, he realizes that his window was open just a little bit because he wanted the air to come in. He wanted a little bit of air, it gets stuffy in there, and he is like, this thing starts checking the door handle. Now he stops, and the thing jumps back down and runs around the other side. He goes, my inclination was to get up, and roll the window up. He's like, but this thing was moving quickly. And he goes, and I got up, and I didn't see it go around the front. He goes, and then I kind of laid back down. He goes, and at that point, it got back up onto the truck. And it was, my feet are here, my head's here, there's the creature. And it absolutely looked like this, like something like this dude right here. See? And he's like, I'm looking at this werewolf looking creature. Now, if you guys have heard this before, you probably remember this. And then he goes, this thing is like looking at him. He goes, with this human looking eyes. And I don't remember what color he said the eyes were, but it began to take its fingers. And this glass on these vehicles is really, really thick. It has to be very thick because there's rocks and shrapnel and all kinds of stuff that hit these. So it's almost like bulletproof glass is what it is. And it protects from like the different shards of things or whatever. And so he's got a radio. So he starts trying to radio to frickin' Frack, as he called him, behind him. They're in the truck behind him, right? And he's like, I thought I was lucky because I got the whole truck to myself. He's like, and then I realized they got the gun, and I'm in here by myself, and this thing, he called it the B word, a B-tard, is right there. He goes, it's looking at me. He goes, it doesn't even blink. It's just like fingers over the top of the window and starts pushing with both hands, pushing. He goes, and it's starting to work. Like it's starting to move
to pull the window down.
And he says, dude, at that point, and I remember him telling me the story originally, telling me the story. Anthony, you remember this guy. That was years ago. And I interviewed him at the house. Like he was at my house, but on the phone. I had him on the phone, and it was on speaker, and I was trying to write down the notes, It's kind of how I did it back then. It was just notebook.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let me, and I'd be like, hold on, let me try to, and my brother's just like, why don't you use a tape recorder? And so I did. And then I didn't know how to use the dang thing correctly. And I couldn't, and so I had to, there was a learning curve on that. And like I said, over the years, I lost them all. And I just said, you know what? I have a very powerful memory. I can do this. And so this is all from memory, folks. Anyways, I remember this thing was pushing it down. He goes, man, I felt like I was going to swallow my tongue. He's like, and I'm over there. And when I would get on the radio, this thing would react. It would stop and kind of look at me and then start kind of pushing on the window like it wants to get into and it's getting angry, like it's getting pissed. He's like, and at that point, I don't know. There might have been another. Yeah, you're pure genius, D. He says, I'm pure genius. Well, you helped, And what's up, BMR? How you doing? One of my good friends in this field. And so he took the walkie-talkie and he's like, hey, guys. Hey, he goes, and then I realized, he goes, I'm not even really yelling. He's like, and every time I use this thing's reacting. And he goes, it doesn't matter. I need to survive. So he's just like, guys, blah! He starts like screaming, yelling. And then he sits up in a moment of courage and starts trying to honk the horn and getting people's attention. And I just remember there was all this commotion and whatever. And eventually the lights come on the other truck. And he's like, thank God. They're awake. And they're like, what's going on? They're like half asleep. He goes, look at my truck. And I remember him saying the first guy was just kind of like, what? And he's like, do you not see this bear, wolf, Bigfoot, whatever the F this thing is? A bunch of expletives hanging on the side of the truck. Can you shoot it? Do something. It's getting into my truck. At this point, it was doing this. Mm-hmm. He said, a little further down, he said it takes an ungodly amount of strength to push that window down and to be able to get it had a human level intelligence and it was trying to get to where it could unlock the door. He said, this thing is like, centimeters, because, he's an American, but these people are millimeters, centimeters. He goes, it's centimeters, millimeters, whatever you guys use from getting to, the unlock the door. And he said, the one guy, I remember him talking about, the guy, I didn't want to disparage him during the story, but he's like a Canadian. He's like, oh, you're in trouble, eh? And he's like, yes, I am about to be eaten, by a werewolf. And can you please do something?
Can we get into the details of it later, please?
So the guy's like, holy crap, look at the thing on there. They're like talking back and forth. And the other guy, he doesn't waste any time. He just like, okay. He leans out the side of his truck and he said, the guy told him later, and I don't know if I talked about this on that show or not, but it took courage. He said, dude, that guy was scared to open the door even enough to try to take a shot at it. He's like, okay, he calls, get down. I'm going to shoot at this thing. So this guy had, and I don't remember what kind of rifle it was. It was a lever action. The other guy had a deer rifle with a scope on it, and they both started firing at this creature. And the thing jumps down. He's like, it gets annoyed. He goes, and then I remember, this is the one thing I really remember about this encounter, was the damn thing wasn't even like phased. It wasn't like, oh crap, I'm getting shot at. Let me jump and run into the woods and get away. No. He's like, I get up and I look and I'm like, I told him, I'm like, I'm setting up because, they and he's like, well, we're reloading. He goes, and one of them said, I think I hit it. I'm pretty sure I did in the shoulder. And he's like, well, there's no blood. He's like, and I look over the side, he goes, and I see this thing just walking like it owned the place. He goes, and then it gets toward the edge of the woods. It turns around and looks at me. He goes, and it gives me a look like I'll be back. And it just saunters off into the woods. My words, not his, but it just saunters off into the woods like it doesn't give a damn.
Yeah, like, remember, you're still in my house.
It doesn't care. He goes, and then I look, and I remember this too. He said there was like another set of eyes that was watching him so there was more than one. And he just says, he goes, I laid back down. I put my hands in my head. He goes, and I felt like I was going to throw up. So I opened the door and I did on the other side. And I kept thinking something was going to pull me by my head. And it was going to be this movie scene of me being ripped apart. Didn't happen. Thank goodness. Or you wouldn't have lived to tell me about it. So that was that encounter. That was Clint's encounter, and I remember that being one of the most asked about encounters. There was that, and then the kid from Michigan who stayed in a car overnight because his stepdad was a real beatard and wouldn't let him come in the house because he locked him out after 10 o'clock or something. So I remember that one too. The kid stayed in the car. I have not spoken to that kid, but he got me in touch with somebody else who gave me a story, which was cool. But here's the thing. And somebody says you can always hit a Canadian Dogman with tariffs. Hey man, you should have. Everybody's complaining about the tariffs we're imposing on their imports. Do you know how much they charge us? Like what we're exporting to them? You mean like it's ridiculous, the tariffs. It's crazy. Go look it up. It's unbelievable. I can't believe how much they charge. So, yeah, we're just giving it back to them. So whatever they send us now, because everything we were exporting to them, they were charging huge tariffs. And so now we're just giving it back to them, and everybody's all like freaking out. I'm like, what? Because we finally decided to stop being nice about stuff and just do what we needed to do to survive? I mean, oh well. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. The whole point, though, of that story was because Clint had two other encounters after that. And it, like I said, we didn't talk for a long time. And I ended up talking to who I thought it was him, and it was some other person. And they were like, hey, man, can I borrow some money? And I'm like, why would this guy not talk to me for years and then want money? So I thought, this isn't him. This isn't the real guy, you know? And so I realized that account was a sock account or it was a fake. So I kicked it out and blocked it, whatever. So he told me, he goes, around the time that was going on, he was overseas. He was in China working. And I said, how did that go? He said, well, there was some weird stuff there too, but not like that. But he did go back to work in Canada eventually, not far from there. And it took him about 5 years before he went back over there. And I said, how was it? He goes, I ran into these things again. Only this time, he goes, it was less of what happened to me and more about what happened to these other two guys. And so he was working with a guy named Phil, who ended up having an encounter. And I can't remember the other guy's name. But they ended up and they gave him the story. So that wasn't really his encounter. He heard one time when he was trying to relieve himself, which would have been almost over 100 miles from where that place was. But you know, when you think about these cryptids and how they can move and do 100 miles, is probably not really that big a deal.
Oh yeah, and plus that they probably don't even move through 3-dimensional space anyway.
They don't. No.
Yeah, so
and even if they do use our laws of physics, how quickly, you know, they can move.
Yeah.
Like the one I saw was like toot toot, it was across the road. It'd take me 4 or 5 steps. It's like 2 for them, you know. They can move pretty quickly. And I've heard of them, I've heard of skinwalkers like just running all day and night across pastures.
Yeah, marathons.
And it doesn't affect them. They don't care. Because they draw upon an energy that we can't conceive of, you know. But this creature, though, what it did was he was urinating and he hears this growling and then this roar, which he's like, I thought only lions and tigers made that sound. He goes, so I'm thinking maybe there's a tiger, but then I know what's out there. He goes, and so I never went too far into the bush by myself. He's like, and I used to tell these guys the story of what happened to me. He's like, and they would laugh. He goes, they would laugh. He goes, when I was working in China, he's like, I was working with these guys, and this goes in time with what we're going to be talking about coming up here pretty soon. And they started telling him that these things are the Jian Zhang, which are the immortals. And that according, it's kind of like a catch-all too for them. They believe that they're just like, they can be like dragon-like creatures, or they can be werewolf-like creatures. There's these gargoyle-looking ones. But they're the immortals. They're basically immortals, you know, creatures. They live forever and they come up out of these holes in the ground. So he was out in far western China in the middle of nowhere. Like there's this, like I said the other night on the show. I don't remember when I said that. Maybe it was Friday or something when we had Kevin Murphy on. The most of the people, like 70%, I think it's like 72% or something like that, they all live in eastern China.
Mm-hmm.
And that western area, there's like woods and desert, and there's all this stuff there, but there's hardly anybody living out there. And so he was out there in that wasteland or just rugged area where nobody's really living. And he was doing work out there. And so he talked to some of the people, and he said the people that he worked with, most of them could speak pretty good English, and they were talking about these creatures. And so it was interesting, to say the least. Some of the stuff that I'm trying to remember the guy's name that gave us that story about the Jianjing. Anyways, I can't remember. He worked for the Chinese government at one time. He was in the military and he got out and he became like a mercenary.
Mm-hmm.
And they and unfortunately he had an aha moment, where he was, because they were using them to get rid of the Buddhists. And then he was just like, I don't want to do this. Why does it always got to stop at that number? Give me a break.
Every time.
YouTube.
Well, the logo for the app market of the tech company that owns YouTube,
Yeah.
if you look at it, it's just a sideways sigil. Yeah.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me, they're like, yeah, I'm not going to go to Rumble because I Googled it and Google said some things bad about it. Basically, I'm like, oh, wow, because Google's the authority. Yeah. That person doesn't watch the
you mean
live stream. They only listen to
you mean Rumble's competitor said something bad about them? Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Color me shocked.
Yeah, so if you're looking at Google to find out about Rumble, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, we're trying to get to 41,000, but when you got lunatics, constantly attacking you, it gets kind of hard. So this guy, what he did, he told me, he says, look, he goes, I told these guys because they had an encounter with something that chased them out of the woods. They were marking the trees. You know how they mark the trees?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, so they're in the woods and they're marking the trees. He goes, and the next thing you know, they come running out of the woods down this little trail on this deer path. This was in Canada. And he's like, and I told him, I said, look, I told you this is real. There's something in these woods. And they were thinking, thank you, Rita Burnett, for that donation. We appreciate it. So now no one else will donate. They'll be like, oh, you got it, Rita. Thanks. Thanks. You got it. It's like Wedge Antilles. I can take on the Empire by myself. Hey, he said he's got this one. We don't have to go to the Death Star. It's all good. Wedge has got it, man. He's going to take on the whole Empire. I'm going to sit and eat some Hot Pockets. So, anyways, folks, feel free to continue to help. We don't mind. Thank you, Rita, though. Appreciate that. And thank you to everybody who's donated previously. I'm just being snarky, and I'm just, like I said, I'm kind of in the mood because of what's been going on. But bless everybody. God bless everybody who's helped. But this guy, one of them, he's convinced that what he saw didn't really happen. And the other guy says, dude, did you just see what that? He goes, I just saw an 8-foot tall wolf creature, werewolf, He starts off trying to say it's like a wolf-like thing, whatever. And the other guy's just like, yeah, I don't know what I saw. And Clint told me something, and this was kind of satisfying in a way, because the guy was in absolute denial, and it made the other guy look like a liar. And Clint had heard it, but he didn't see it in this camp. And he says, look, man, he's like, if you saw it, just admit to what you saw, because it would help us all to be able to understand what we're dealing with out here. Because you still got guys that are going out there and they're running around out there by themselves and not going in teams like they're supposed to. the rule was 2 to 3 people. You're not supposed to go and do the marking by yourself because the excuse was from the company you could get turned around and get lost. And that's a good excuse, right? Thank you for the donation. We appreciate it. But you don't. He's like, dude, I don't believe that that's the only reason. I think the company knows because they've had so many complaints. This was a different company. But he said they've had so many complaints. He goes, I know damn well that they know that these things are out there. And he said, I had a Bigfoot encounter too. Now, he says this happened very briefly. He was driving one of these humongous trucks, and he says this big furry ape-like creature just lumbered across the trail real quick, and he was just like, whoa. And he was just like, did you see that? And the guy he was with was like, yeah. And he said it was like upwards of 9 foot tall. I mean, he said it was gigantic. It could look at us into the window. And he said, dude, there's no way that these people don't know these beings are out there.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, he goes, I didn't really have an experience with one of these things. I wasn't really afraid of these Bigfoot type creatures. He's like, but I had heard of them doing some really mean, nasty things, especially when you're trying to log. And he's like, and the people in China had told him. And he worked in Malaysia too. He went to these different countries. And he said, dude, my company that I had worked with for a while, they were really into like different places. They had contracts, and he now, as we speak, he's down in Brazil. So, whether you believe, you agree with what his job is or not, you think I don't judge people for that. I mean, he's doing what he does to make a living. But these companies, he goes, they already know. All of them are the same. He's like, they have these parameters like, hey, don't do this, don't do that, because this or that could happen. Most of it's centered around you could get hurt or you get lost. He's like, but I'm sure that they're acutely aware of the monsters that are out there.
Yeah.
Right. And there's another thing too. He worked with a guy from the Philippines who claimed to have seen an Oswang, which is something akin to like a vampire, unalive and take a person out of the jungle. So, who knows? I don't know. I mean, I've heard multiple accounts of Oswang, and in fact, I have a few, and I would like to get into those eventually too. It's like a ghoul corpse eating thing, but it also drinks blood through its tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's interesting in of itself too, because what if this thing just was like a carrion eating type Nephilim, but then it got infected with what I believe is the parasite of the black goo, which creates vampirism.
Yep.
And then it became one. And maybe there are two different kinds of Osway. Maybe there's the carrion eating ghoul, and then there's the vampire. I mean, I know I'm just saying we're getting way out there, but I'm just saying, dude, I've heard stories of these creatures being attacked by this black goo. And the next thing you know, they're like vampiric. I don't know. But anyways, Oswang, Aswang. Come on, Richard, you can do better than that. You're from Canada. We're talking about your gross country, dude. Look, I'm joking. Canada's very beautiful, very beautiful place. But I mean, I've only been to certain parts. I haven't been way up in there, like, where all this wackiness goes on. But these creatures, right? They're there. And so what happened? This one guy, he goes to use the restroom in the woods, and he told him, he's like, dude, I know nobody wants to not poop in private, but he's like, maybe you should have a lookout or something. And the guy's like, oh no, I'm not worried about it. And he's still convinced that he didn't see what he saw.
Stubborn.
So he goes pretty deep into the woods, and then all you hear is screaming and yelling and what amounts to like some sort of struggle that's going on. So Clint runs up to the edge of the woods and he's yelling. He's like, I'll be honest. He goes, I didn't run up into the woods. He goes, after what happened to me, he's like, I just wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to run up in there and save this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes, I told him. and he didn't listen. So he's like screaming for this guy. I think the guy's name is like Jeff or something. So he's like, Jeff, and like the guy's like starts yelling, help, help. And then he goes, when a couple more of my cohorts came, then he goes, I just start running toward the woods, but kind of waiting, for them to catch up, He's like, you can think bad of me if you want. And I said, I don't think bad of you at all. I mean, the guy's being a stubborn asshole.
Try to tell him.
Looking at the comments here. That's nice of you. Barry said, if you come to Canada, he's going to cook me a goose. As long as it's not duck, I don't eat ducks. Duck was our high school mascot. So what ends up happening, they catch up to him, and he's been drugged by something. He's got huge gash marks on his shoulder. Literally, his pec was split open. You could see it was bad. He goes, and there were rocks that had cut open his pants, and he had a piece of a tree, like branch, sticking in his lower back. So needless to say, Mr. Non-Believer had to be medevaced out of there. And he goes, and it took him almost 2 hours to get somebody out there to pick him up. He's like, this is like 100 miles north of where we were the first time, which was in the middle of nowhere. And he says, so this guy gets picked up by this medevac helicopter, whatever. He said, about 2 months later, I catch up to this guy. We're on another job, and this dude's the foreman on one of these crews. And he's like, this job was in Alaska. He's like, and the Alaska is where he saw the Bigfoot, not in Canada.
Right.
He goes, and that's where I saw the Bigfoot. He goes, but this guy, he told me, he point blank, he says, look, he says, I got attacked, by this, whatever, and it wasn't 2 months. I'm sorry, 2 years. It was 2 years. 2 years later, he runs into this guy, and the guy's healed from his wounds. He likes to take his shirt off and show people like this horrible wound that came from the claws. He's like, what I didn't know at the time, though, was he was also bitten, and a big chunk of his back fat, I guess you could, he was a heavyset guy, but this burly, really strong, powerfully built guy, but it bit him and took about 3 pounds of flesh off of him.
Oh.
He's like, and I just thought it was like he had been drugged and tore up, He's like, and so the guy was lucky to be alive. He was bleeding to death when they got him. The company, of course, tells him, hey, we're not to talk about this. He was attacked by a wolf. When he gets to talk to this guy, the guy goes, hey, come in. It's his first day there on this job. He's the superintendent, not the foreman. Sorry. He closes the door and he tells Clint, he says, look, I'm going to tell you something. He said, I saw what I saw the first time. I didn't want to be called crazy. So I stupidly made myself believe that it didn't happen. Huge mistake. And he tells him, he says, you were right. And the other guy, too, was like, I saw what I saw. And he says, I should have taken heed.
Mm-hmm.
So often happens with these things, people don't want to believe that it's really happening. They just want to go like, oh, this is not real. This can't possibly be real. This can't be. Why am I seeing what I'm seeing? And then you go through a spectrum of emotions. I know I did. And the final emotion is acceptance. That's just how it is, how it's going to be. And it's hard. It's really hard. And he tells him, he says, when it happened to you, what you saw, did you have dreams and nightmares and things like that? And he says, yeah, I did. This guy that this happened to, Jeff, I'm going to call him Jeff because I think that's what he said his name was. He said, look, I'm going to tell you something. He goes, my dreams are different. He goes, I feel like I'm leaving my body and I'm running around out in the woods and I'm attacking things. So Clint is kind of taken aback by that, and he's like, what do you mean? He goes, what I mean is I don't know if what is happening to me is dreams so much as maybe it's really happening. He's like, part of me thinks that, yeah, this is a dream. These are just dreams. And then part of me thinks that this is something like it's happening, I guess, to this guy from the way Clint, it was explained to him. And all I know is how he told me that it's happening to this dude, but he can't really distinguish between reality and what's. And he said, it's not like, and I've thought about this before because the creature that attacked me looked very much like a werewolf. And he goes, and I'm not, unaware wolf. I'm not unaware of the legends and the myths. He goes, I've looked into it. You know what happens to you if you get bitter or attacked, whatever. I don't think it necessarily happens that way. I think there again, it is some sort of like a virus, possibly, or some sort of. It's like a paranormal contagion.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that word used when this guy was talking about Skinwalker Ranch, and I don't know that guy's name of that channel. It's like the channel and then it stops, and then there's like periods.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's on my history. I'd have to go look. And I see D and Tony. Where's Scorpion at? We got to pray for Scorpion, folks. He got punched in the eye by a homeless person, and we're hoping that it's not getting infected. But because he's real bad about not taking care of himself. So check in with him. See if he's all right. But anyways, because I haven't seen him since yesterday. But this paranormal contagion, if that's what you want to call it, this guy, Jeff, was attacked. He was tore up pretty bad. First, they said it was a wolf. Then they were like, no, this creature's too big. It had to be a bear. So he tells Clint, he tells him in his office, he says, look, man, it wasn't a bear and it wasn't a damn wolf. It was a freaking werewolf. It was huge, and it was just like, and it had a human-like intelligence about it. He's like, and it might not have been alone. And he's like, okay, that makes sense. They had already been chased by these things. And he says, I should have listened to you. He goes, but I made myself believe. Another problem that I see with this guy's situation is that he was a devout atheist. But then he started having these dreams. He said, and he goes, he wasn't really, hey, Bettina, what's going on? Bettina Moss in the house. He's like, it wasn't really like having dreams. Like he tells Clint, he's like, I wasn't having dreams of this creature. He was having dreams of himself running around out in the woods. He's like, and I had a dream that I attacked a deer. He goes, but the damn thing kicked me in the chin and it split my chin open. He's like, and so, but I just kept on with this ferocity of trying to take it down. And eventually I did. And he goes, and then I was eating it. He's like, and then I wake up the next day. He goes, and my chin is just gashed open. And he goes, I go to the sink and I look and there's like dirt and debris and mud all over my house. And I'm bleeding and there's blood going from my bed all the way to the bathroom. And he goes, it's dried. He's like, and I look, he goes, but then in a couple of days,
healed up quickly.
It was healed up. I heal pretty quickly. But I mean, some people do.
But in the dream, he was himself, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, because the way that he was describing the dream was like he was doing it, but like, is there a point when you hover above your body and go, what the hell is that? What am I,
Yeah.
Because I'm not a werewolf. So I don't know how that works. But here's what happened. Here's where it gets weird. And Clint told me this. He said, this isn't my encounter, but I'm telling you what happened. Is Bettina says, I miss you guys. We miss you too, Bettina. Wish you'd still be around more. I get it. You've moved on with your life. You don't care about us. It's all right. Whatever.
Don't care about us little people.
Yeah. Well, hello from me and Anthony, Tony, Nelly, the whole gang, and Abe and all of us. So, There are some encounters that we've gotten from people. Now, in particular, there was just one guy named Al. We call him Big Al. And sadly, Big Al passed away a few years ago. And he was my brother's really good friend. He used to play bass guitar, big, heavy set guy. And Al had claimed to have been attacked by something wolf-like years ago. This was years ago. And he actually started going to church, and he did what could only be described as like a mild exorcism. And I was waiting for my brother to kind of give me the green light on that, because we should visit that and talk about that, because maybe he was, I don't know, attacked by a werewolf. And the weird thing was that it wasn't far from our house where we used to live. And it was near the railroad tracks. And this thing came out of the darkness, bit him and attacked him. It was the size of a large dog. It drug him for a few feet, and he started smacking it with what was a railroad spike. There was one loose laying right there. And by the grace of God, and he fought it off. And then he ended up in the hospital for a few days. But he started having these weird dreams. When I was talking about the dreams that I was having, he told me, my brother, and Scorpion, and Willie, and everybody, he was over his body, and he would see himself jumping around and moving around like this four-legged creature, but it didn't look like a wolf. But like I said, Al passed away. He had heart problems. He had an enlarged heart, and he was unhealthy. And he started doing, drugs, and he quit working out and fell into really bad health, and then he died. But I remember him saying that, and I that was one of the things I wrote down in my journal too, and I never really revisited it, but I started thinking about it. And there was another one too from a guy named Carl, started with a C. It was Carl or something. I'll go back and look. I have it. I have it open on my computer. Like I was like looking at it before I came. And Anthony was over there like this. He's like, "This will never work." He's very negative, very negative.
Yeah.
So,
well, someone has to be.
Negative, positive reinforcement, right?
Someone has to counteract all this idealism.
He's like, I hate you, and everybody hates you, but Jesus loves you, and God does too, and that's all that matters.
Toxic positivity around here.
He likes to remind me, that Jesus loves you. That doesn't mean everyone else has to, or does. But no, what happened was, though, this guy, I can't remember his name, starts with like a C or something, but he was saying on there, thank you for that donation.
Oh, it's very generous of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And he said, he told him, he says, look, or he told us in the email, he says, I sometimes come out of my body and I see things. And I had something weird, very similar to that happen to me when I was working at Cabela's after I had the encounter with what I call a skinwalker. Wasn't like super dramatic or scary. It wasn't really scary, but I honestly fully believe that man was a skinwalker. I really do. Because he had no business doing what he was doing and being around. I've told the story before. I'm not going to get into it. This isn't about me. It's somebody else's encounters. But that guy had said something about, similar, like looking out over his body, coming out of his body and seeing his body. Now that would mean that these werewolf cult people had called the other. You know what I'm talking about? The other?
Mm-hmm.
And they say that this thing takes over your body and goes off and does God knows what. And you either come along for the ride or you don't. Right? And it's really terrifying because you don't know, what if you unalive somebody or somebody's pets or whatever in this obnoxious animalistic state. And in the early days of this, I horribly screwed up. I don't say horribly screwed up, but I screwed up because I wasn't taking into account people like that guy's encounter, or wasn't even really looking hard enough at what happened to me or what happened to Big Al. Because I just didn't think that, that this was what it was. I didn't think it was werewolf. I thought it was like a Dogman, flesh and blood, and I was believing people like the little goofball that's hanging out with the guy on the stupid channel up in Oklahoma, like that little communist dude. Like I was listening to people like that. Didn't know he was a communist at the time, but I was listening to these people tell me, well, this is what it is. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you guys have been in this field longer than me. Maybe you know. And I was dumb enough to fall into that trap of it's some sort of animal. This ain't no damn animal. It's like I can tell you right now, man, this thing is not an animal, dude. Like it has animalistic qualities, but I think that's part of like the evil nature of this thing. I'm gonna pause the camera for a second here, folks. I hate to do that. I just scratch my back with this deer antler. Oh, there we go. Just look weird. I'm over there scratching my back. What's going on, guys? But no, this animalistic nature, I think that one of the things that evil, let's just say Satan, devil, whatever, wants to take your humanity and turn you into a beast. A savage beast is not regulated by the controls of the pure divine, which is God. Remove you from God because you don't even remember nothing because you're in this animal-like state. That is werewolfism.
Yeah, because I think what sets us apart specifically from animals, like if I were to be asked that question, I would say that the fact that we have a will and an intellect, but when you're in that animalistic state that the other puts you in, it's like it takes both of those things away. Your will is not your own, and your intellect is not there. It's like you just like it's just like this real atavistic, animalistic state.
Mm-hmm.
You're barely human. What makes you human is taken away from you.
Yeah, it's been taken away. So what we're left with in this story, the guy tells him, hey, he goes, and he asks him, he's like, have you had any more encounters? He goes, on this side? And he goes, thank God, no. Been here for a couple months and there's been nothing. He's like, possibly Bigfoot activity because we've seen some tracks. So these loggers up there in the far north, they apparently are acutely aware that this has happened. There is this stuff's happening, right? When I was talking to Ron Moorhead the other day, and we talked about Port Locke, he went up there to Port Locke. That was a place where they were trying to rehabilitate humanity. Didn't work out too good, because those creatures up there don't want you there. And whether you believe that they're Nephilim or just giant apes running around, they're way stronger and more powerful than you physically. And so I would strongly suggest not being alone, where you can be taken. This dude made a huge error. He said, he told Clint, he says, I don't think it would have happened to me if I hadn't gone by myself. He goes, I think they used that ambush, He said, because when I was with my friend, he goes, it was like a bluff, I think, that it charged and we ran. He goes, if we were by ourselves, it would have killed us. And it tried to kill him. It bit him and drug him, and only because his friends came up and they were firing at it, with weapons, that he was freed. Now, that was all that he got from that guy. And by Clint's own words, he was just like, look, man, this is all that I was told. I didn't really ask the guy. It was just work. And then in a month or so later, the guy had to go to another job and we ended up with a new guy, and I worked with him for a couple months and then I was gone. He goes, and I lost count. I lost touch with that guy. I started working for another company. I ended up in Malaysia, where he was running things up in Malaysia. He goes, now the Malaysian thing, he goes, they have their own. So here's what I got from Clint. He gave me a person from Malaysia and another guy that was Indian, but he worked in China, that gave him stories of these Dogman type creatures. Well, no, I'm sorry. The one guy, it was a winged creature, but still from that one thing and just getting back in touch with that guy. That's, man, you can get a whole lot of information from people by just sticking with it and talking to people and going back and revisiting with some of these people, because folks, once this has happened to somebody, it becomes an indelible part of their lives. It's not like they're just like, well, that happened to me, I'm gonna put it in the back burner and not ever think about it again. No. And so So that's what happened to him. And then there was another encounter that he had with this Dogman type creature. And this is weird. When he was up in Michigan, he was fishing, and guess where he was at? The Manistee National Forest. And he says, dude, I'm up there and I'm with my oldest son. And his son's name is Britt. And Britt, not Brett, his son. He goes, and my oldest son is 19 years old. And he's like, hey, Dad, let's go fishing or whatever. He goes, we go camping. He goes, and I'm used to being out in the woods. He goes, what happened to me with that creature trying to get in the truck? He goes, it didn't change my life dramatically, but it did somewhat. He goes, I don't go anywhere unarmed. And I'm talking heavy armed. He's like, he goes, and I'm not afraid to say this but I keep silver bullets. And I'm like, well, that's not, I said, make sure you get up close.
Yeah. It's not going to tumble, right?
Yeah. It doesn't tumble correctly. And he knows he's already tried it.
Maybe like some bird shot or something.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to do it with, I told him about that. Pack the silver rounds, the BBs, into shotgun. So they scatter, it does work. I think it works on vampires and werewolves because, like I said, I think that if you ever looked at a parasite under a microscope, it looks like a demon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like under those really powerful electron microscopes, when they like show their faces, it's like a monster.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
So when you see these creatures, under a microscope, they look demonic. And you can even look at like pictures of what back before they had microscopes. Get this. Some of these pictures of these parasites, they look like demons from like the 16th and 15th century. How would they have known unless they'd seen them? So back to what we were saying. So Clint has this whole weird life that went on after that encounter. Before that, nothing, except for one thing. When he was in his grandmother's house, when he was I think he said he was 8 years old. He was 8 years old. He said he had a very profound experience. Now, here's the weird thing. He's like, it was the day before his birthday, of his 8th birthday. So I guess 7, 8 years old. He said that the day before his 8th birthday, he goes, I was so excited. He's like, and get this. He goes, I go downstairs. He's like, and my grandmother would always make me this angel food cake. He's like, my dad loves angel food cake. I can't stand it. It's just me. I don't like that spongy whatever. He goes, but my grandmother would put this white cream frosting on there, and I loved it. She goes, and she's always telling me every birthday until I was 14 and she passed away. He said, she'd always tell me. She'd be like, Clint, don't go down there and mess around with the cake because, I would do it. I've been doing it since I was little. So he goes, I sneak down there. He's like, and there is my grandmother sitting at the table, and she's like reading the newspaper. He's like, and I go downstairs, and I'm like, oh, shoot. And she sees him, and she says, come on. I know you want a piece of this cake. And she's like, and the year before, his grandfather had passed away. He sits at the table. This is when he was a kid, right? And I figured I should tell this because maybe that could have something to do with what led on to him being whatever. He says, and while we're sitting there and we're having a piece of cake, and my grandmother, she starts to tear up, and he grabs her arm, and he goes, and I look up, and behind my grandmother, right there at the stove, I see my grandfather in his robe he would always wear at Christmas time or my birthday, because my birthday was like right after, it was like January, right after Christmas, He's like, and he's drinking coffee, and he's looking at me. And I'm sitting there looking at him. He's like, and he looked like, he goes, how in Star Wars where they showed Obi-Wan Kenobi like he's glowing? He said he really looked like that. And then he was just, he was gone. He goes, and I didn't have the heart to tell my grandmother, she was already in tears. He's like, and he goes, so I saw my grandfather. And he didn't just see him once. He saw him again years later. He goes, I had just come back from, I was playing baseball. He goes, I was in high school, I was playing baseball. I was trying to get a scholarship to go to Michigan State. And he goes, and my grades, I just couldn't get my grades up. He goes, and then I come back, and we had just lost, and we were in the playoffs. He goes, and I sat down on my bed. He goes, and I hear, it's okay. It was his grandfather. We
Uh-huh.
lived with his grandparents, right? And so he says, I look up and my grandpa just walking down the hallway. He goes, and it didn't even dawn on me that he had passed away, when I was a kid. And he goes, my grandpa would always do that. He goes, I used to put these models together, right?
Mm-hmm.
He goes, and my grandpa would help me. He goes, and then one day he just has a heart attack and he's gone. It's just, he's gone. And he's like, I was like 7, And he goes, so I look up and I'm like, chase after him and he's gone. And he's like, I was like 16. So, he had these profound experiences and he thought oftentimes that he could hear like a male voice, like soothing his grandmother. She would have these bad dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that the house was reputedly haunted, but he really didn't have a lot of issues. He just saw his grandpa. But his cousins and his siblings claimed that it was haunted, whatever. And he goes, I spent every chance I could, I was over there. My parents were always getting into it. And so he's like, I want to be there. And so he goes, I don't know if that's profound enough to maybe lead into seeing the Dogman or whatever. And I told him this. I said, I think these things are attracted to people who can see them. And I think if they can't get what they want, which is to eat you or I don't give a crap what these other people are saying about Dogman. Yes, it will unalive you and it will eat you. It's not made like this for shits and giggles. Okay. All right. I don't care. They can tell you, let them lie and have people come on there and talk about how they gave them apples and they played together and, they started a folk band. I don't give a crap. That's all bull crap. That is bull crap. You heard me say it. But he told me, he says, what do you think? I was like, well, because you have that spiritual energy. You can see it in a metaphysical state and it becomes physical, right? Because you're giving it that power. Abe Seas refers to it in his show. I've heard him say it he's like the power of your belief. Well, I don't necessarily think it's like the power of your belief, but I think that when you're seeing it and you're giving it that belief because you are giving it that energy,
Mm-hmm.
it's helping to manifest, and everything's vibration.
Yeah.
You heard Kevin say that, and then the night before you heard Ron Moorhead say that. Very good guests, and they're saying what's real. They're telling you the truth. Right? It's the power of belief. And because you are giving it that power and you're scared to death of what you're seeing, then all of a sudden now it has this ability. It manifests itself like, yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do about it?
It's like it's there regardless, but you're perceiving it kind of augments its abilities within the three-dimensional world.
It turns it into a reality that,
yeah,
and it becomes more grounded, and the vibration, you're on that same vibration with it. So a lot of times when people see Dogman, I really believe that they have seen ghosts before.
Yeah.
Or if nothing else, they start seeing them afterwards. On this show, when you think about it, we've had somebody come on here and talk about driving straight through a Dogman.
Mm-hmm.
We've had someone come on here and talk about hitting a goat man with their vehicle, a police officer, no less. We've had people, just you name it, that have come on the show, and then countless people whose shows we've retold, or episodes where we've retold people's encounters. And you hear like with Kevin Murphy, I know he gets kind of, out there when he's talking because he just has so much to say, but he saw one of these wolf-like creatures during his wife's, or his common law wife's, meditation. He saw a Dogman. He's seen these what he refers to as nature spirits, but they're gargoyles-looking creatures, and they manifest on that particular wavelength that you're on. And so, I think that when what happened to this guy, like he went through this entire plethora of experiences, after what happened, because he was on the fringes of it. And I think a lot of it revolved around, just as a young man, he was opened up to the spiritual essence of what our world is. And it never really closed. Now, those are the things that he saw. He heard things, and he wasn't having auditory hallucinations. Like, him and the girl that he was with before he got married, he lived with this other girl, and she was psychic. And so Clint said that at times she would say, "Do you hear that?" And he would stop and listen, and then they would hear things together. And this duplex that they stayed in that was haunted. So it was like this haunted, place. And he said that, yeah, I could hear things. And he's like, no, I didn't see anything. He's like, but I did hear it. And so you have this going on with this guy, and then he has this crazy encounter in Saskatchewan. And then later on, he saw a Bigfoot go across the road, and he asked me a question. I think it was a very pertinent question. He said, "Do you think that thing would have appeared to me, if I hadn't seen the Dogman?" I said, "Dude, that's a good question. I don't know." And you can tell me what you think in the comment section of that. So one thing leads to another, and I end up meeting this woman named Elle. Her and her husband. Her husband is a Bigfoot researcher. Elle, very much by her own admission, started off as a supreme skeptic. That's her words. I don't know what the difference between a supreme skeptic and a minor skeptic. Supreme skeptic, okay? Like the ultimate skeptic, I guess. I don't know. Thank you for that donation, Chef Yoda. We appreciate that. And the donation that we got earlier, we go back to that real quick before we start talking about Elle. It's way up here. There it is. So it says, Queen Sicey says, CC or Sicey says, I'm a silent viewer and I've been for a while. Since you were on that other channel, didn't like you at first, not one of those haters, but the more I stuck around y'all, the more y'all grew on me. Now I love when you're live. You're a blessing, Josh. Well, I'm glad, because I'm not always everybody's cup of tea. A lot of people over the years, some of my best friends, and Anthony's heard him say it, when they first met me, they didn't like me.
Yeah, started out as enemies.
And not always just enemies, but just started out as just not friends. They're just like, yeah, I don't like this guy.
Yeah.
Just me. And then they realize they think I'm fake or being fake or whatever, or being a certain way, or maybe I'm obnoxious, whatever. And then they just realize, like, oh, wait, that's just who he is. He's really that way. Like, if you ever got a chance to talk to my friends that I've had for 20, 30 years, because I've had friends for over 30 years. I've had friends. And a lot of them are on my Facebook, not all of them, but I don't know if you go to the conferences, some of you guys met Starscream. But if you were able to talk to some of my friends, they'll tell you that they didn't like me when they first met me, because they didn't know me. But I didn't change who I was to suit what they wanted. I just was me all the time. And the one thing my mother always said, and we didn't always get along, was that I was always me, regardless of whether you wanted me to be or not. I was just who I was. One of the things, though, recently when people were disparaging, I'm not getting to get into a whole thing, disparaging me in relation with my mom. No, I actually, even after my mother passed, I told an entire story about what happened with my mother and how bad it was. This was before she had her near-death experience. And they said, oh, after his mother died, he started talking about how great she was, this and that. Nope. I believe that when you pass, whatever you do, your legacy is, God will forgive you. He'll accept you and you can go home to him. But what you do in this world, people are going to remember that. And that's going to become your legacy. You're going to be remembered for what you've done, for every good deed that people can remember and every sin that people can remember. So just because someone dies don't mean that they become sanctified, not in my eyes. There's some people that have passed away, and I don't feel like anything. I mean, what they have to go through, I don't hate them. There's not one soul on this earth that I hate, even those horrible people that are doing what they're doing to us on a daily basis. The slander and the lies and the misrepresentation. It's all on you, dude. It's all on you. You're going to face every bit of that. Not me. You're an annoyance and a nuisance to us, but what you got coming, and I can see why you're running around being afraid of of cancer and death because I don't fear it. I don't fear death. You probably do. Because if you really believe, I don't know if you're a true believer or you just say that, but when it's all said and done, you got a lot to answer for, son. There's going to be a judgment. I've had a lot of listeners ask me that. What do you think of this? I said, you will pay for it in this world or the next. You'd be better off paying for it here. Because you're going to end up somewhere, no way out, despair. And you can blame PRT and Josh Turner all you want. You can do that to the court. You can do that to the police. You can do it to your listeners. You can lie, but you can't lie to God. And so I believe that the judgment comes to people like that. They'll get theirs. And that's why I started the show. And then I just killed the stream and started over because I don't want that negativity on this stream. But I had to say what I had to say. You keep talking about my mother. My mom has passed away. We didn't have the best relationship. But before she died, we did. We did have a pretty good relationship. But it doesn't change what happened. Doesn't change how she treated me from the past. It still happened. And she was aware of that. And she was very open and honest about it. She was like, yeah, I treated him bad. So what?
Yeah, and I watched that relationship get repaired over the years myself.
Yeah. I moved on, so did she.
Mm-hmm.
She never stopped loving me and never stopped loving her. Me and my dad have even tried to work on our relationship. Now, he don't call me, I mean, I'm not his best friend, and I'll openly, if he asks me point blank, hey, do you say something? Heck yeah, I did. I said some things. And wasn't none of it a lie either. I told the truth. Did he say things about me to people? Yeah. Sure he did. That's just how it goes, man. Like I said, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but with me, you know where you stand. There's not going to be any backbiting behind your back. I'm not going to say to your face. You call me up and say, hey, Fontaine said that you said that. Yeah, absolutely. I said this. Let me tell you why. There's no underhandedness. They've created a myth of me being some kind of underhanded kind of guy. I don't do business that way. I'll tell you exactly where I'm at, and I'll tell you where you stand with me. And then by the same turn, you can tell me where I stand with you. But I'm going to tell you one way or the other. No lies, just honesty. Just let it flow. Let it be honest. It's just what it is. Yes, exactly. Truth wins out. There you go. So Clint's stories, when you go back to what we were talking about, Clint, he had all these stories. Now, we'll get into what Elle told me. Elle had done her homework because her husband, like I said, is a Bigfooter. He's a pretty cool guy. Was kind of hard to get a whole lot of information from him. He's kind of guarded with it. But I think it's because he doesn't want her to have problems because of her job. And working for Canada is kind of, I can only imagine, when you're working for the son of Castro.
Yeah.
And he is, let's just be honest. And so whenever she says, look, there's some things 1.5 years from now, or actually, I think she was more specific. I think she says like 1 year and 8 months or something. She'll be done, retired, and she's going to come out and tell me whatever the heck it is. But she's fielded reports working for the forestry department of people seeing Bigfoot, Dogman, and all kinds of stuff. And the way they do things over there, there's more red tape, more bureaucracy, more. It's just what they do, like they make things more than they have to. Let's put it that way. They regulate the hell out of everything so they can control it because that's what commies do. So there's all these people who've had these problems. So one of the things that happened, and I think it was somebody that she knew who was running one of those sites, actually got her in touch with Clint, I believe, or, I think that's how it happened. So anyways, they have a friend named Aaliyah, and it was a friend of her husband's that was married to this woman. She was very much one of those kind of, and I've talked to her, she's sort of a hippy dippy. I disagree with a couple of the things that she talks about. Okay. I'll get into that in a minute. But that doesn't take away from her experiences and what happened to her. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen, that it wasn't real, and that it wasn't like, I just don't agree with the way her outlook on, like, the way she thinks things are. And Lac Larange, Lake Larange, whatever. She purchased a property up there, and it was really just a two bedroom cabin that was on Lac Larange, and it was basically, it was very close to like this little supposedly uninhabited island, and she could actually canoe out there to that island, and she did it quite regularly. It was a good fishing spot, and her dream to live out in the middle of nowhere, off the grid, whatever, is what drove a wedge between her and her now ex-husband. He's like, look, I need to live near a city to do my job. This was a particular city she didn't want to live around. They were actually living in Ontario. She says, I want to move to Saskatchewan. And he's like, good luck with that. And so she did. So she packed up the Winnebago and took off and bought this. This is pretty interesting. She bought this cabin back in the late 90s for like $4,000. And that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And it came with 3 acres. Gradually, she bought a few more acres around until it ended up being 11 acres altogether. And I was thinking, like, yeah, that's pretty cool to have 11 acres right there on a lake. You're secluded. The nearest neighbors are like, I think she said 21 kilometers or something like that. I don't think she said that it was miles. I think she said it was kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, she said that it was like this, beautiful, pristine, whatever. She started encountering these beings, which she referred to as the giant hairy folk. I don't agree with that, because I don't think that they're giant hairy folk. I think they're giant Nephilim. And I don't agree with them being like, well, they're just as afraid of you as you are of them, and blah, blah, blah. And they're just curious. They just want to eat you.
They're just 800 pounds and killing machines because they're curious.
Yeah, they're just full of love. They just want love. That's all. Just a little bit of love. And so, anyways, she was living in Lake Larange, and the first time she said, oh, get this. Now, this is weird. Now, a lot of times when we get these stories, people will say this too. They'll say, I was out picking berries.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they'll be like, and then just all hell breaks loose, But she was out picking wild berries. I don't know what kind. She didn't tell me. She's like, but I was up there and I was picking berries. She's like, I see this. First, she smells this horrible rotten stench. She looks up and she sees this reddish brown being covered in head to toe from head to toe in fur. She's like, and it looks like a Bigfoot, like how you would think of as a Bigfoot. Now, when she first went up there, she had talked to some of the park rangers. There was a place that she had stopped not too far from there. And these guys are not rangers. They were Mounties, whatever. And they had told her, one of them was he says, you got to be real careful up there. A lot of people go missing. It's very secluded. And in the wintertime, we can't get to you. So you got to hunker down for the winter. And she's like, no, I'm totally prepared, whatever. Her mother was from Alaska. And her dad was from Southern Canada, British Columbia. And so she had met her husband there in British Columbia, and he had a job in Ontario. They got married, they moved, and blah, blah, blah. So she had it in her mind that she was going to live off of the grid, live off of the land. And this is what she went to do. And more power to you. She started having encounters with this one particular being. The way she described it, too, was the face was real rough. And you could see this part of the face going down to where most men start having facial hair. And he had a very, very long and pronounced beard. She's like, and he had a protruding brow line. And she goes, but if you stared at him and you didn't know him, this is her words, She's like, you would think he was just this evil, wicked, demonic looking being. And so I was like, okay, Aaliyah, what if it was an evil, demonic looking? Maybe he was looking demonic for a reason. Like maybe he was. And she's like, oh no. She's like, I know your stance on this. She's like, Elle already told me that you have sort of a bias against the hairy people of the forest. And I'm like, I don't have a bias against them per se, but I if I see one, I'm not going to make friends with it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to come at it from a place of fear, and I'm not going to point a gun at it, but I'm not going to pick berries and leave them anything to eat. Okay. She's like, well, I did. I said, yeah, I know. So she started leaving what amounted to like offerings
Tribute.
to these creatures.
It's a bad contract to sign.
Not a good way to get started on anything. But she said nothing really. Now, this is a very powerfully interesting story. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell part of it on the show tonight. And then I'm going to finish it up for the Tuesday's episode. We were going to do the Jian Jing, but I'm not done talking to a friend of mine about that yet. Once we get to that point, then we will, we can go back and we'll deal with that. But what ended up happening with her, she spent a couple months just kind of doing her own renovating. By her own words, she's like, I'm pretty athletically built. She's like, I'm very strong, industrious person. She's like, when I was younger, I was a gymnast. I did all kinds of stuff. And she's like, and I'm limber and I'm strong. She's like, and I'm an avid weightlifter. She's, I have a weight set in my house. I lift weights. I'm a strong woman. And I said, okay, cool. And so she says, so I started taking out the rotten wood and putting in the wood. She goes, and every now and then I turn around and I'd see one of these creatures. She's like, and in fact, one day a bear came. This is what she said. A bear came up out of the woods and it was just a brown bear, not overly large, but brown bears can be grizzlies. So she said it was just a brown bear. Okay. And I didn't argue with her, but she said that it came out of the woods, out of the clearing, and was just kind of like looking around and just kind of sniffing around. She had some fish that she had hung up and she thought that that's what it was looking for. She's like, and then I hear this roar and it stops. It looks toward the tree line. She goes, and I see, and she has a name that she gave me for this hideous demonic Bigfoot. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm not going to even repeat the name because I'm just not going to. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll call him M. M comes out of the woods and heroically rescues her from this bear. Now, before you think, because I am being a little bit cynical and sarcastic when it comes to these creatures, before you think this can't happen, it won't happen. No, I read a story about a guy who was saved from a black panther in Florida from a Bigfoot. I've heard of people being attacked. A guy was being trampled to death by a wild Mustang, like a stallion, and a Bigfoot chased it away. So I think they're just like people in some ways. Some of them can be that way. But remember this, they are still Bigfoot, and they don't always play nice when it doesn't suit their purposes.
Uh-huh.
Another problem with Bigfoot is that they are Bigfoot and there's other Bigfoot, and they might bring those other ones around. And just because you're down with the hood don't mean that the rest of them are down with you.
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying? Because they'll be like, oh, this is my friend. And their friends up there like, they don't like you.
Yeah.
They don't know you and they don't care. They just see well, here you are, some hippy dippy pale-faced person there in my hood. What's up? I'm Bigfoot and you're not. And just because Fontaine likes you don't mean I do. And I'm going to start some shit with you. And that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. She's like, everything was fine. He introduced me to his mate and she was cool, and she goes, there wasn't any of this like Like we weren't like talking and doing mind speak or anything like that. And then she was open about that. She's like, but there was a female that came around and she was pretty cool. But then there was this younger juvenile one and he seemed pretty cool, but he started coming around the property with a couple of his buddies. She's like, and then things started getting broken and food started going missing. She's like, and every once in a while I would have to drive, like 100 miles to go get supplies and whatever, or 100 kilometers, whatever it was. And she's like, I come back and my cabin's been broken into. I know it was only them. There's no one else around. She's like, now there are a few resorts and a few little places up there that operate in the summertime. And if you look at it on a map, I mean, there's just these huge spattering of islands all over the place. And she's like, and I had access to one. And she's like, and so I would go out there and I built sort of a makeshift little, I guess, like a cabin, but she didn't call it a cabin. She called it I can't remember what she called it. It was like a little one room shack.
Like a shack.
Yeah, but she called it something.
A tiny home or something.
Yeah. But she said that I started and I kind of just, made it my own little getaway so I could go and I could fish. And I was keeping a bunch of fish there. And she says that it was too far out. The bear couldn't like really get out there to it. They didn't really swim out there too much. So she says, so I was really it was a secret. She's like, but then I was coming back one time and I see these orangey looking eyes in the evening looking at me. And she goes, and then 2 days later, all of my fish that I'd been keeping there were gone. So they robbed her because thieving Sasquatch. And in fact, we did a show with Daryl Denton called Thieving Sasquatch.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. And so she said that she got tired of this, predation from them. And so she wasn't averse to using firearms. And she said, so one day while they were trying to tear her fish down, she came out and she fired a couple blasts in the air. And then these Bigfoot, it was in the evening and they bolted. The next day or the next night, her cabin gets pelted with humongous, like bowling ball sized boulders that bash holes and all kinds of crap into her habitation. And she eventually, it started like a problem to the point where they were coming up to the front door at 2 a.m. and kicking it in. Not coming running inside of it, but like kicking it in, knocking the windows in. She was having to cover them with deer skins and things like that. And it got to the point where she was basically being harassed to where she goes, I went out into the edge of the woods and I started trying to talk to the big guy, the main one. And she goes, and eventually he came out and I talked to him. I spoke to him. She goes, he didn't answer me back and any kind of telepathy or anything like that. But she goes, but I think he understood. He's like, and so she gave him some fish and some bread, and he turned away, according to her, and the crap stopped. She's like, and then she's like, there was this sort of uneasy truce, She's like, I bagged a couple elk. I would take them and I would leave a haunch or something for them. They'd come and take it, and then there was no more of these, what she believed were these rowdy juvenile Bigfoot doing what they were doing. And she said that one of the things that made them angry too was that she recorded them, like the sounds of these whooping and hollering.
Mm-hmm.
She said, now I don't know what to think of this. I don't know if you should ever do anything like this. I don't know if it was me, I'd probably be like, hell no, I don't know. But she started to blast them from a boombox.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you got to remember this woman's older than me, so boombox is something we had back in the day. She recorded them on a cassette and then replayed it. And she said that she wanted to get more of their sounds, And so I said, okay. And so she played it and she started getting this feedback. She's like, and you could tell there were like these whoops and hollers and these different types of screeches. But she said that at one point, she said she started hearing something that sounded distinctly different. And she's like, she started to hear this long, drawn out howl that turned into like a roar that was very distinctly different from the Bigfoot. And she said that whenever that would happen, the Bigfoot would go silent.
Hmm.
And she said that not long after about the 1 year mark, she says, I started going further into the woods. I felt safe. I mean, I really wasn't worried. I would see bear when it wasn't winter, you know. She's like, and it was early spring, really early spring. She's like, and the first thaws were starting. And she goes, and I went out and I was trying to track some dinner. And she said there was these two rabbits that were just there hanging up on a tree branch, like they had been left there for her. So she's like, oh, cool. So, and she said it wasn't uncommon for these particular Bigfoot to leave her food, at least from the big one. So she took them because she knew kind of where the perimeter was on her property. And then there was other places where they kept their own food cache. She didn't mess with that. So she took these rabbits, she skinned them, she took them, she made them, ate them, whatever. She says that night, while she's sitting there looking out the window, washing her dishes, she said there was this beautiful family of elk that would come running through there, and there was babies. And, you know, she said she would stare at them and watch them. And when she's hungry, she'd take one, you know. But she's like, there was this one particular family that started coming to her property, and she was kind of becoming infatuated with them. She didn't want to hurt them or take them or anything. Most of her diet consisted of fish. A very pure, clean place. She was like, I could eat fish, you know.
Mm-hmm.
These elk or whatever got spooked, and they took off running. She's like, and she sees this thing kind of halfway crawl and then pop up out of the brush. And she's like, I was stunned. She's like, I had never seen anything like this. This was not M, the Bigfoot.
Yeah. What's your name?
And this was not his siblings, his offspring, or their juvenile pest. You know, they were causing problems, breaking into her shed and stuff like that.
Was it a Bigfoot at all?
She said, no, this thing had a snout. It was humongous. She's like, built just like M, like a giant upper body. She goes, but it had these weird backward bent legs. And when it turned its head to the side, she said it had a big old snout, sort of a rounded snout, though not as dog-like. Now, this is what's interesting about this case, was that it was more like she said, if you took a bear and mixed it with a wolf,
Mm-hmm.
with a man's body, she said, that's no way I could describe it. And she said that this thing turned, and she goes, and when it locked eyes with me, she's like, it never blinked. It just started moving sideways and kept its eyes trained on me, and then started walking towards me. And I'm like, she goes, and I'm washing dishes and I'm standing there. She's like, and I'm looking around for like a weapon. She's like, and this thing had a intelligence about it, because she's like, I could have swore it was basically saying to me, don't try it. Don't do it. Like it was warning me. She goes, but I didn't care. I was like, I don't know if this thing is trying to put images in my head of me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it wasn't words. Or this thing was going to come through my window and unalive me. And she said that it got down like it was going to. She's like, so I just bolted, you know, and grabbed the closest rifle I had. And she's like, and it was, you know, I mean, if you're one of those people who decides that you're going to go off grid, you're going to live, you're going to do whatever, I hope you have an arsenal. Okay. And she did have like some weapons. And she's like, I have a very high powered rifle, you know, and she's like, and I trained it on this thing. And she's like, and at that point it had retreated back into the woods, and it was right there at the edge of the woods. She goes, I could just see its head. And when I pointed it through the glass at the head, it backed up into the woods. And that started a whole thing with this particular creature. And like I said, it wasn't a Dogman, it wasn't a Bigfoot, and it wasn't a, you know, whatever. She couldn't really tell me what she thought it was.
Yeah.
And so I asked her, and I didn't want to lead her and tell her, well, because sometimes you could lead somebody to say what you want them to say so you can run and retell it or whatever. But she said, I asked her, I said, what do you think that this thing was? If you had to, what did it look more like? She said, well, more wolf-like, but she said it had bear-like qualities and even Bigfoot-like qualities. She said that the hands were weird, like big, oversized hands, large, with these big claws on the end. She's like, and I told her, I said, a lot of times people claim these dogmen have these like rounded looking paws. And she says, and the good thing about this witness too, is that Aaliyah did not, she was not like, oh, it was a Bigfoot, because she had not seen a Bigfoot before. She had already been seeing these Bigfoot for like a year.
Mm-hmm.
They made themselves known pretty quickly. This dude was something completely different. But she said that when he started coming around and haunting the property, her words, not mine, stalking and haunting, as she called it, the Bigfoot just dropped out. Like they were gone.
She never saw them again? Or
she did,
just,
but not while this turd was around.
So just for the time this thing was around, she didn't see the Bigfoot.
No.
That's scary.
Yeah, they all just kind of bolted. And I had a researcher years ago tell me that he was in an area where there were both. And whenever the Bigfoot were there, it was, but then when the Dogman came, Bigfoot left.
They don't want that smoke.
Yeah, I guess not. And so it was something that seemed very unnatural. Now, as fascinating and crazy as the story of Aaliyah is, she says, and I'm going to get through that, but she tells me this big old long story about how the terror of this thing, right? But then she goes, but that's nothing compared to what my friend Zena went through. And I'm like, and I'm sorry, Aaliyah, I didn't mean it, but I was like,
couldn't resist.
I was like, well, Zena,
you just had to.
Yeah, I had to be smart. I know how I am.
Before you even said it,
I wasn't trying to be rude to her, but I know Nelly probably heard me. But I was just like, I said, look, she's a warrior princess. She's just not gonna.
Just had to. That bait was too good.
Yeah,
you can't dangle
that.
Lay
the smackdown on Dogman gonna hurt her. But she said it's nothing compared to what my friend Zena went through. Now, Zena was a person that she met, her and her husband. They had bought a sort of fixer-upper about 30 miles to the south on the other side of this lake. And if you look at this on a map, like it's, it seems like Canada is just water with like little patches of land in there. I'm not even joking. There's just like a ton of lakes, dude. It's crazy, dude. I mean, and Alex Ventura says several encounters. Let's get to this story here. Let's see what Alex has to say. Several encounters with no video evidence. Why? Because it's all a bunch of bullshit, Alex. You figured it out. You're the man. In fact, dude, I give up, dude. Probably because when somebody's living out in the middle of nowhere, she's not videoing this shit because she barely had electricity. So I don't think without having a cell phone, there's probably not going to be somebody videoing that. And another thing too, most of the time when people see these creatures, they're not trying to video them. And there are channels, a lot of them actually, that do present video evidence of these things. And I personally don't participate in that because AI. And even before AI got to where it is now, Alex, I can tell you this is a problem. When people would video these things, it just looks like blurs, really fast moving blurs are on camera. And another thing, they look or like pixelated predator looking whatever they are because they cloak. Because like I said, and I stand by this 100%, these things, they're not flesh and blood completely. They are something in between, and they're a metaphysical thing, dude. So that's the reason for that. And not to mention, most of the time, especially when it happened to me, I didn't have a cell phone back then. A lot of the encounters we talk about, I mean, well, the 50-50, some of them back in the age before cell phones. Some people did have cell phones, but you're not going to be like, oh, I'm being attacked by a Bigfoot or being chased by a Dogman. Let me video that. And then let's see how that works out, because it's probably just going to be a big blur. So there you go, dude. But yeah, I'm glad you're on top of it, man. I'm really glad that you're there, dude. I mean, yeah, head trip, exactly. I'm so tired of that because we have probably like 1,000 times 1,000 photos that people have taken of these things, and some of them Some of them are compelling. I'm going to tell you right now, some of them are pretty compelling. And then some of it looks like it could be very, I don't know, like, I mean, like, but then if you were to post it in Paranormal Roundtable group, right, or on the page, right, you know what's going to happen? You're just going to have a bunch of arguing. I mean, I literally went out in the woods like 2 or 3 days ago, and I showed you what I believe to be Bigfoot habitation. There were these branches that were curved. I mean, you could see it on the video, and 9 feet up, you know, which you would need a freaking ladder to get up there and snap those branches. There were these trees, normal tree, normal tree, normal tree, then snap branch, right? What is that? Do you think a person's doing that? And then somebody said the wind. Dude, get the F out of here. When is the wind strong enough to just snap one of those branches at the top? Not down here. Maybe up there in the land of wherever the hell you're from, the whirling dervishes or whatever. But no, dude, that's not the wind. The wind didn't snap those. Those are like, some of those are oak trees and the top just snapped like that. I don't believe that. I really don't. I mean, you can look and see. I mean, it's got to be, you know, and I'm not saying it has to be Bigfoot or whatever, but something's making it happen. I mean, you know, but whatever, dude, you know, and so, yeah, I love it when people come up with that because, you know, Stale Nemesis, that's a good idea. Patreon should get to see the photos. Maybe we could start showing some of them on the Patreon. But how many people are showing up for the Patreon? Last time we only had like 30 people show up for the Patreon meeting. That's tomorrow. So join the Patreon and make it worth our while. Because we're doing the Patreon show every other Monday and we have one tomorrow, and it's nice, cozy little chat. And anybody's allowed to just jump on there. If you're on the Patreon, just jump on there and talk and hang out. And I would love to see more people join the Patreon for lots of different reasons. For one, you get a ton of swag and you can wear that swag and you can take it and it's free advertising. Well, it's not free because we're giving it to you. So it costs us a little bit of money, but it's advertising. You know, and people need to understand this too. If you're an aspiring YouTuber or podcaster, let me tell you something. You're not going to make a bunch of money on merch. You're just not. You're not. What you want to do with merch, folks, if you're trying to make something for yourself in this business field, whatever you want to call it, community, yeah, that's a joke. You want merch? People always think merch, ding, money. No, you're not going to make money off of merch, okay? I'm telling you right now. I know some really big, huge YouTubers, and they don't make crap off of their merch. Now, maybe their logos aren't as cool as ours. I don't know. But people like our logos. They like our merch. But what you want to do is have people wear it. We give it away. We give it away. And once we get it set up, you're going to be able to buy it. Now, it keeps getting pushed back because we have a million things. This past week, I had doctor's appointments and all kinds of other stuff that was going on and interviews and stuff like the one with Ron Moorhead. I had to interview him early. He's an early riser, so I had to interview him early. But this coming week, definitely we're going to get it done and we're going to get it set up and we're going to have it to where, you know, you can buy merch and it's not about making money. It's about you getting it and wearing it. Definitely. And we want you to be able to buy hats and shirts and other things and just go out and show the merch. And also hope folks, Alex Ventura, I didn't mean to come at you so hard, but you know, dude, we've already been down that road a million times. It's nothing new. I mean, if you use your brain, you can see why. And I hope nobody blocked him unless he started saying something rude because I haven't seen any kind of rebuttal from him. You're not blocked. I hope the mods didn't block you because I allow people to say what they want to say. And any hard question that comes up there, I'll post it and I'll talk about it. I'm not running away and I don't ignore hard questions. Say what you got to say. And we'll put it out there. We'll talk about it, dude. And anybody who wants to come on, especially if you're on the Patreon, jump on that Patreon and you tell me exactly what you feel and what you want to be heard. And I'll talk to you. And if you're one of these other jackasses from these channels that think that you're somebody or you're defending them and you want to talk, dude, let's go. We'll go to Rumble. I'll debate you all day long about any subject you want to debate about. Anything you want to talk about, bring it up. I'll go on to Rumble and I will face you. Okay? You beat me, I beat you. What does it matter? Either way, we throw down. We got to do what we got to do. No, I ain't scared. Never scared. Ain't gonna run. Some people won't do that. They're cowards. They keep talking all that trash, but they won't meet me. They won't come and face me because we have the proof, the screenshots, the everything, dude. And they're not gonna come and talk to us. They won't do it. They won't do it. I promise you, they're a bunch of cowards, dude. And there it is right there. Even smoking gun, best evidence, people will just say it's fake. And you can do. I was given some pictures recently. Pretty compelling. But like I said, what do you want me to do with it? He says, well, post it on there. I'm like, dude, you're just going to get shredded. In fact, if Abe, if you're listening, I don't know if you've jumped on your show yet or not, but if you're listening, come on the Patreon tomorrow and bring the video footage you have of the DDNs, the disembodied demonic Nephilim that stalked you at Elms Grove. He had some pretty cool photos he posted on his page. He posted the videos, and you could see him moving and stuff on the show he did like a few nights ago. Come on there and show them. Just like you and Bettina did when we were at the conference. A lot of people showed pictures and stuff, and then half people were like, oh, cool, that's crazy. And then other people are like, well, it's fake. And then, and then there's a big argument. And they're like, and then they'll always come back to me and be like, why are you posting fake shit, bro? And like, it's not even mine. It's somebody else's. I don't have pictures of this shit. We have one picture from, what is it, Apache Pass? Of that wolf-headed looking thing that Nelly posted. Yeah. That one was pretty compelling. And then I have a picture of a ghost. Oh, I have two. I have an orb that's floating in front of mine. And then I have a picture of a ghost from the club I used to work at. Other than that, I don't know. Yeah, Alex, that's a truth. And let's talk about this for a minute. Alex is making a good point. He's like, I'm not a skeptic, but the Patterson video is all we got. That is all we got. That's why I keep telling these people, you can go out into the woods all day long and you're not going to find, you might see it, but you're not going to be able to video it. You're not going to be able to take pictures of it because it is of a metaphysical nature. Now, Alex, I don't know what you believe, whether you believe it or you don't believe it. But the bottom line is, folks, I'm going to tell you this. He's got a good point. I just think that, if these things were not of a metaphysical nature, we have a million stories about them. And we hear all these recordings and sounds that these people have recorded. I've heard it. I got the CDs from Ron Moorhead. He gave them to me at the conference. Let me tell you something, man. I mean, like, I've heard it. And me and Anthony have been out. We think we've heard them too. We've heard Dogman. I'm almost positive that's what it was. You can see them. But taking photo evidence, that's another thing, dude. I don't know how that works. That's why when you go to these places and they're always trying to get video and images of ghosts. They're phantoms, fantasmos, as they say in Spanish. Where are you going to get these things? Give me a picture of the cucuy. What does it look like? We don't have it. But we have very credible witnesses that have had terrifying encounters with these things over and over again. Now, in Aaliyah's case, she's not out there with a camera. She had a Polaroid by her own. I asked her about that, and she didn't have a cell phone. She's out there living off the grid. She's not, she's living her life. And all we know is what she says happened. I don't know what happened because I wasn't there. But, I think that there's something to be said. That these, Evan says, what time is the Patreon tomorrow? 8:00, brother. 8:00. We're going to do it. We're going to do it upright like we always do Patreon. It's always fun. See, there you go. And Mullins just says, Alex, some really interesting stuff on MK Davis' YouTube channel. Really interesting video of some predator drowning a deer. There's stuff out there, man, but it's so hard to like say, hey, this is what this is. You know what I mean? we've talked to people from all walks of life. I was talking to a friend of mine, who's a lawyer, that I had talked to before I ended up settling with my friend here. Is that, but he was telling me, that he had went hunting. Not hunting. I'm sorry, fishing down Turkey Creek. It's Turkey Creek Lake, if that makes any sense. Going toward Marble Falls, and he saw a Bigfoot out there not that long ago, back in October. That's where Sean and one of them saw a Dogman. One of them saw a Bigfoot. There were two different. No, wait. There were two Bigfoot encounters and one Dogman encounter. Or was it two big, or vice versa?
I think it was 2 Bigfoot, 1 Dogman.
One Dogman, and one of his name was Sean. Another person's name was like Avery. Wasn't it?
Mhm.
I want to say I get confused with the names, but those people, we talked to them face to face, and they were just like, "Look, man, they're just a couple of hillbillies. They don't care." I'd say that in a good way. There's hillbillies that are like, "Hey, man, let's cause problems on YouTube," and then there's hillbillies just like, "Hey, man, I saw a Bigfoot. Do what you want." The two different kinds of hillbillies. There's the dickhead ones, and then there's the normal kind that I'm related to. But yeah, they saw these things, and when he saw the one coming up the side of that hill, I asked him too. I was like, I guess you probably didn't. He goes, before I even got the thing, talk about taking pictures. He's like, hell no, I didn't try to take a picture. Try to get the hell out of there. And I almost got like he was offended that I even said. I said, look, man, people just ask all the time, and it's not going to do any good because they're just going to say it's fake.
Yeah.
You could take a picture of a werewolf coming through your wall, be like, look, there it is. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, it's fake. That's pretty good special effects. So I don't know who you know in Hollywood. But
Photoshop. That's Photoshop, bro.
Werewolf says, one of your mods called me racist, permanently banned my other channel. We're talking about the Jewish people wearing the black cubes on their heads and connected to Saturn Satan worship. I have no idea. I don't know who the mod was. I have no idea about that. Well, somebody says, what?
I don't know. I was just going to say, we got to be careful how you word things on YouTube. That's all I know.
Yeah. Could be a giant wolf face looking in their kitchen window and they'd say it's fake. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. Kevin Murphy, thank you for that donation. Kevin, how you doing? You did it twice. I don't know if you meant to do that or not. Hey, Cody Edmondson, how you doing? Head Trip, I see everybody in here. Betsy. And Dick, we did sing your stuff out, so. And Dick says they worship Saturn, the star is the star of Remphan. Scripture. Yep, that star was not supposed to be used. It says here, hey, PRT people, I'm getting laid, been watching a new revolution. I don't even know what that is. AEW or Revolution. Hope it was good. But yeah, so what ended up happening with this woman? It gets really compelling. But she says you wouldn't believe what happened to my friend, and she goes on to tell me that Xena, and I couldn't help but laugh. And Xena's her real name. I thought it was a nickname, and I was kind of making a joke about it, and I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm a smart ass. And Alex, I wasn't trying to jump all over you, whatever, but I'm used to being trolled, and some people think that, I'm going to be smarmy and say something. I don't run from shit, bro. I do not. This dude doesn't run away from anything. Mm-hmm. Somebody comes at me with a hard question, bring it. Let's talk about it. I'm not going to go, better hide from that. I'm over here pulling some shit because I'm not. Excuse my language, so I shouldn't be cussing, but it gets tiring. They've thrown everything they can at me, including the kitchen sink and the toilet.
Yeah, expecting you to back down is an exercise in futility.
And they think that I'm going to go run and hide under a rock.
Not going to happen.
Not. I'm going to come at you, and I'm going to flex on you, and I'm going to call you out. I'm going to call you out for your chicanery. The people that are messing with us, folks, they're cowards and they're scared. You're scared. All you do is hide. You say little sneaky things and you run and hide. You know, what's funny though is that one of them, I called him out. He actually showed his ugly, big potato bald head. I couldn't believe he did that. It was so ugly. I was like, oh, he did it, dude. Like, I actually got you to do it, man. Yeah, he went without wearing a ball cap. That was, I give you props for that because you're quite hideous, in my opinion. And I couldn't believe it. And he's jealous because look at this. I got hair and he doesn't. So, I mean, I'd be very jealous. These are very stupid people, folks. I'm telling you, very stupid and very inbred. They're all inbred. They're very inbred. They inbreed with one another. We can almost prove it. We have like basically people that know them saying, hey, they're inbred. That's why they're so goofy and weird, you know? But if my head looked like that, I feel bad now for that. That's the only thing I feel bad about was forcing him to show that potato head. I would have just wore a hat, bro, and just said, hey, you know what? I'm not even going to. But you're so easy to goad. And Roofy, if I say anything, he has to come back, you know, and say something. He can't help himself. Y'all are so predictable. And then the other one making these vague, there's consequences coming, brother. For you, yeah, all of you. Sure are. And hell's coming with me, huh? Yeah, y'all are Tombstone. You're the Earps, right? Right? I'm Ike. That's me. Yeah, sure. Everything is opposite day with these people, folks. Just remember that. Just pray for them. They have the retardation, all of them. They have a very low IQ, very small brain, size of a peanut, very small brain. And very much inbred, breeding with own mother and sister, create very small brain peanut. And they do and say goofy thing, no good time for them, always bad, because very, very much retardation. So there you go. Evan says, Wolf, myself and 100 plus of my friends all need roof work done. Do you know anyone we could make an appointment with and that getting canceled last minute? Well, there's always such and sons. I don't want to say his name. But in my opinion, I don't think he's the guy for the job. And he's always in East Texas. You know what else is in East Texas? The killing fields. He's always in that area, always haunting that area. Go look it up. Every time anybody ever tells, he's always coming from East. He's always in East Texas. Well, I was in East Texas. What were you doing in East Texas? That's where like 50-something women have been buried there. Now, if you started your career around the time most serial killers would have started, it would have made sense. And some of these people, they become police officers and join the Department of Justice for the very express purpose of human trafficking. Now, not all cops are that way, and I love a lot of cops, but some of them do that, and they do it so they can get away with crimes. Yeah. So just these are very dangerous people, though. They've all threatened to kill me at some point in time. Okay. And they've had friends that they claim are there for whatever doing it too. I mean, just go to PRT News. You'll see. They are unhinged like you wouldn't believe. So if you were me and you're living your life and you're trying to do your job and trying to do your show and you have to look over your shoulder because one of these goofball definitely inbred hicks wants to unalive you.
Back shooters.
And they're big time into cults. Like, you know, one of them, I'm not saying Aggies are cult members, but I have a lot of beloved, very dear family and friends that are Aggies. But yeah, it's a cult. And people like him, the Roofy, he takes it to another level. Like it's psychotically satanic with him. He worships it. It's a form of idolatry. So he's got all these weird psychosis and he projects it onto people like me because he's insane. He's a crazy old coot. And you know, and then he gets together with this inbred guy from Oklahoma, and then it was murder.
Murder was the case that they gave me.
It's ridiculous. Inbreeding causes aggression. Yes, it does. And you can see it in these people. You can see it, and they're all racist. I'm not even pulling any punches on that. I could prove it to you. They have said the most. They are vile, racist people. And then you got the other guy from the cosplayer from the LBO. All of a sudden, he mentored and raised some young black child because, no, you didn't. He lied to some guy that was looking into him so he could get away with.
Well, it's no
being the way he
coincidence that
is.
they're all Southern good old boys, and they all hate you, and you're like a
Half Hispanic,
half and half.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, I've heard all of them use the N-word.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard it from their own mouths, and corrected one of them. Used to work for me. I had to correct you because you used it. I was like, and then that was the next step to you being, because you are what you are. And he can't help himself. Tomorrow he'll be plastering a big old diatribe about me and about how I'm a satanic leviathan, whatever. That's what they'll do. Well, just if you want to know who they are, go to PRT News. You'll see who they are. They're crazy, man. I mean, they're just a bunch of bigoted, inbred rednecks. That's what they are. And they're very angry. They didn't like that I interviewed some people that I hit 40,000, and they just started and acted a fool. The demons in them got all up in their ass and got them going again. Nobody did anything to them.
Like that kid on the Pac-Man video.
They just started back up again because they didn't like that we were growing. We hit 40,000, so it was their cue to start. And then the mass reporting. Tito, he says, I love California. I love California too. I just don't like all the Californians. The state itself is beautiful. It's a beautiful place. Hang on one second. I got work. Always something. Yeah, like throwing water on gremlins, exactly. In fact, Gil Sanchez, former law enforcement, he's the one that had the incident where he talked about it on the show, running into a goat man thing. I had a lady recently, I just got one a couple of days ago, another reptilian story. I'm getting about 2 a week on those now, on the reptilians. It's really ramped up. But we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to the Dogman, werewolves, whatever, and vampires. And so I got to run, folks. I got things I got to take care of. And we got to record for Tuesday's podcast episode. And that's important because it doesn't just go to you guys. It goes to the podcast community. And there's a lot of people who just don't want to go to YouTube. They'll tell you flat out, I don't do YouTube. And they don't do YouTube because of all the crap, because of people like Ike up there in Oklahoma. People that do that. They do what they do. So on this episode coming up on Tuesday, I'm going to finish up talking about what happened to Aaliyah, and then her neighbor Zena and Don, her husband, and we'll get into that. So that'll come out on Tuesday, and it's just going to be a continuation of what we talked about tonight. But before you go, guys, there's 700 people in the chat. Let's do some merch giveaways. Let's give away some stuff. Do we have hats? We have a lot of people asking for hats. We have any in stock? See. I know I have a ton of hats, but they're not PRT hats. And please pray for me, because these people literally have told multiple people how they plan to kill me. They do it under the guise of like, well, I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And one of them has claimed over and over and over again that, that I'm going to die trying to hurt him or something. I never said that I was going to hurt you. I never said that. I never threatened you. I never did any of that. You lied over and over and over and over and over again. You've lied, claiming at the same time to be a Christian. And you continue to lie. You continue. And you keep saying that you're going to kill me and do all this other stuff to me because I threatened you. I never threatened you. If you have the proof of this, please publicly put it out there. And they keep using this, the anonymous whatever, to attack me and talk about my mom, Anthony's grandmother. Horrible. Never, you don't sleep. You don't sleep. I mean, you don't work. You don't work. It's constant with these people. And then they team up with all witches and communists and all kinds of crap. It's unbelievable. Yeah, and they do make fake proof. Like but it was so obvious. They took a group, and it was Clough that did this, and you did, you fat ass. He took this from a group, a thread or whatever, it was like a chat or whatever, and he put it on there and tried to make it look like my wife and another woman had said, "Oh, we're lying." Like who's going to say that? "Oh, I hope that they can keep their lives straight," and all this other bullshit, dude. You photoshopped that, and it was a very poor job of doing it. And it was probably old fat Cluffington who did it, because his big fat muffin ass. He doesn't. This guy is the weakest human being I've ever been around. The gym, he couldn't even do one pull down.
It's pathetic.
He's so pathetic. You're the pathetic person.
There was girls in there lifting more weight than
Girls, man, and he wouldn't do anything. We tried to get him to lift. He wouldn't even work out. At least Farton tried. So you had this guy over there, doing what he was doing. And so I'm pretty sure he's probably the one that put together the Photoshop, whatever, but that's fake. So we got in touch after that particular incident. That's when my wife reached out to the FBI, because she was like, you know what? We need to let them know, because they're trying to create, they didn't try. The baldy potato head from Oklahoma made up a story to try to cover his ass for the deviant things he did to his own family. He tried to say that he didn't do any of these things, and it was all just a grand conspiracy concocted by me and my wife and some other YouTubers to take his children away. Okay. Never happened. My hand to God, I had nothing to do with it. And he knows that. And his own sister, I'll repeat it, made a joke about him and his mother being incestuous. How about that? She did. She can pretend like she didn't do it. She looks like a big Chucky doll. She's crazy as hell too, just like all of them. That whole family is just why people should be sterilized. It's disgusting, these people. But they're allowed to get on YouTube and say whatever the hell they want. And then, they're allowed to flourish. So that's why we're thinking, you know what? Let's just go to Rumble and get away from these inbred hillbilly redneck screwballs. So, who is this? California. I haven't heard of you. See, you're using the Dogman thing there. Kevin has a good question.
So we have hats.
We do?
Mm-hmm.
How many?
Probably about at least 15 of them, maybe.
Good. What do they look like? Can you get me one?
Yeah.
Because I know we have a bunch of different ones. Kevin, you said did ghosts on this planet? That is very possible. I think that's, I think it's, very possible that that's what that is. Ghosts could be a being that doesn't go into the white light. Could be a lot of different things going on with that. I mean, that's definitely one very plausible, I've thought that before, but who knows, man? I mean, ghosts, it's a weird subject, dude.
All the different kinds we got.
Oh, we got some pink. How many pink we got?
I think we only have like maybe 4 of the pink.
It's sitting there for a while. You have a little bit of dust. So we have these right here. How many do we have of each one? So because somebody might say, "Hey, I like this one," and then we still
So
have the barbed wire one. This is a badass hat right here.
so far that's the only barbed wire one that I found.
It's the last one.
And I
I'm
think
keeping it, folks. No, I'm joking. So here we go. We got this one here, the barbed wire. That this was a big one, big hit when we sold these at the
yeah, at
conference.
the conference.
We sold a lot of them. We sold like 20, 30 of them. I take it this is the last one of the camo.
No, there's a few more left of the camo.
Okay, so we got these. We got this one. We have this one. And then we have this one. So I'm going to let you pick. We're going to give away hats today. How about that? But I'll let you decide. Okay, just tell me which one you like and just be specific and say, "Hey, I like that one." So let's do it. Let's pick. I'm going to do something a little different today. How about this? Is your name in green? If your name is in green, I'm going to let our peers pick. So just say, "Hey, I haven't won." We'll start with people who haven't won. Ed Tripp says, "My T-shirt never came in." What happened to your T-shirt? T-shirt never came in. And Curtis, no relation, but he says, "I still have my barbed wire hat." Awesome, by the way. Thank you. So
Yeah, Mary King, who spoke up and said that she hasn't won. I think Jamie Johnson or Fred Martin hasn't won. Paul Pachura hasn't won. I think Jamie Johnson hasn't won.
So here it is. Okay, so we got Fred Martin. Fred Martin hasn't won. Paul Pachuro.
Gil Sanchez has never won.
Paul Pachura. Is it Pachura? Am I saying it correctly? And then Jamie Johnson. So Jamie Johnson, you got a hat already. Get out of here. But wait a little while. You can win again. And then it's Evan says, "I won in January." You just won. Mary King says, "I haven't won." Now here's the thing: if you don't want a hat, then just tell me. You can get it. You can get a shirt. But we're out of 3 different sizes now on the hoodies.
Yeah, I think so.
So we have to, we're gonna have to scale back on that. We have to get some more.
Beetle Baby 4. We just mailed off.
No, they said they won in
days ago.
July.
No, well, send your information again, and we'll add you to our next round of mail offs, please.
Now, here's the thing: if we go to the postal annex and it shows that it was mailed off, we can show you proof that it was mailed off. Because there have been people who said, "Oh, I didn't win. I never got anything." And then when we go to the postal annex and we go to mail off your thing or whatever it is that you won, then it shows up on their computer that you were mailed off. Like one guy's been mailed off stuff 3 times. He keeps saying it's not getting it. I'm not saying he's lying. I can't continue to keep sending it to an address that may be not getting the mail, or someone it's getting stolen.
Yeah.
So that's that issue. So, folks, I'm going to let you guys. Jamie Johnson says, "I got a shirt." Yeah, you got a shirt. So we have Fred Martin who says, "I like a hat for sure." So how many people want? Mary says the pink hat would be great. How about that? We'll give you that, Mary. How about that? We'll give you the pink hat. Send me your information with your well, you don't have a handle. It's just Mary King. Your address, and we can send you the hat. We'll send you some stickers too. And if we got the keychains, we'll give you a keychain too.
And remember, the new email to send your information to for giveaways is giveaways@prtpodcast.com. So again, that's giveaways, just one word, no spaces, giveaways@prtpodcast.com. Make sure you send your name, your YouTube handle, what you won, and your mailing address. All right, please do that.
So, Mary, you want a hat? Now I'm going to let the people decide. We got Fred Martin, and we got who else said they hadn't won? So did you get your stuff? Not Watcher 117. Did you ever get your stuff? Because I know we mailed some stuff out to you. So there were two other people who said they hadn't won.
I think Gil Sanchez said that he hadn't won.
Gil Sanchez hadn't won. He's been on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he says I've never won.
Okay, Gil. So which hat do you want? You want the gray, the green, camo, or the last of the barbed wire hats? Tell us what you won.
And we also have Paul Pachuro, who hasn't won.
And Paul Pachura, who hasn't won. Somebody says Paul hasn't won. So Evan Tabaldo says Fred. So Fred Martin. Camo, sir. So the camo, there's camo on the barbed wire, and then there's camo like this. Is that the one you're talking about? Do you want this one? It's kind of that worn camo look. We'll send that to you. Thick Anime Girl 7. You have to. Your name has to be in green. In order to be in green, you have to be a member. And I can't just give away to people who aren't members because it's not fair to people who pay for the membership. So Chris Anderson says Gil wants a camo. He said, "Yep, okay." So you're talking about that one. So we got Gil and we got Mary. We got one more person here. We got Fred, and who was the other person? Paul.
Mm-hmm.
So between Fred and Paul. Between Fred and Paul. Oh, that's nice of you, Spunky. She gave a membership to somebody. You gifted a membership. That's cool. That's a cool thing to do, man, to gift memberships to people.
Mm-hmm.
I see that a lot on our channel. I like that. Fred Martin says, pick me, please. Well, it's up between you and Paul. Let's take the votes, guys. That's how many we can get in the next few minutes here between Paul and Fred. Fred seems to be more active. Paula says Fred. We got one for Fred. Fred Barnes says, Bill Barnes says Fred. Joanne Harness says Paul. Dick Richards says Fred. What do we got here? Who else we got? Paul, if you really want the hat, you got to come on and speak up, man. Say, hey, man, I really want it. Steampunk, I'll see you tomorrow night, guys. Oh, cool. Hopefully you'll be on the Patreon there. Not Watcher says Fred. And to be a Patreon doesn't cost $1 bazillion. It's $10, and you can become a Patreon member at $10, and then you can get the extra 2 shows a month, and then you also get all the great swag. So that's always cool. This is just for the membership thing, because all these channels have like a membership, and we just do it so we do a giveaway. There it is right there. You got to send it to giveaways@prtpodcast.com. If you send that to the old address, starting as of now, Josh Turner, prtpodcast.com, that's for the stories. And that thing fills up really fast. You can ask Anthony. That thing is full. So you may be overlooked. That's the reason why people were being overlooked and not getting their stuff. So we made this email address, giveaways@prtpodcast.com. They do, Bernard. They really do. So who are we going with? D put Paul and Fred. Come on, D.
Mm-hmm.
Paul dropped out. I don't see him anywhere. He's not really saying anything. So,
I would go with Fred just because he's active right now.
Yeah, Fred's like, look, PRT new subscribe. Paul's like, I am
Oh
here.
man,
Okay, so
Made
here's
me
what we're
feel
gonna
bad.
do because I'm a nice guy and y'all saw this coming. You know how I am. I'm a very generous guy. So neither one of you get it. That's it.
fair
Anyways,
is fair.
I'll see you tomorrow at the Patreon show. I'm kidding.
Everyone
joking.
loses.
Paul says I'll fight for. I like a fighter,
That's the
man.
spirit.
I was a fighter for years, bro. But yeah, let's do this. You both win. How about that? So send me your information.
You see, Paul, sometimes violence is the answer.
What happened with T Toey? She said something about she was feeling awful. What was wrong? You were feeling bad? I'm sorry. What happened? Did spilling? She says Spunky made her day.
That's nice.
What did Spunky do? I didn't see what she did. I don't want to see our listeners feel bad.
Oh, we got a new member. A thick anime girl.
Thick anime girl says I'm there now. She's like, I ain't won.
Yeah.
I ain't done this. I ain't won. You know. And she's thick, right? She's thick, guys. I'm just saying. I'm thick. You know, I'm one of those thick people.
Should probably watch a little bit less anime though.
Watch less anime.
Bad
though.
for you.
Bad.
It rots your brain. Them Chinese cartoons.
Oh, Toei says she blew out her knee. Guys, let's
Oh,
pray
crap.
for Toei, please. We should pray. Say a quick prayer.
Mhm.
Father, I come unto you in the name of Christ. We ask all these things in the name of Jesus. Your will be done, Lord God. Please help this person, Toei, that we know as Toei. Please heal her and help her to walk and be well, Lord God. Please watch over her and take care of her and her family and help her to get through this and heal quickly. In the name of Jesus, your will be done. Forgive us for our sins. Thank you for your blessings. Thank you for allowing our life. Amen. One of the things you should do every day if you're a person that prays, and if you're not, I'm not attacking you. I'm not going to attack you for not praying or being a Christian, whatever. But if you do pray, always thank God for your good health and your freedom and ask God to help you keep it for the rest of your life. Every day. You got to do that every day. I'm telling you. And I'm not the most perfect person. I'm a sinner. I make mistakes. I let anger get the better of me. And you've seen me on here be emotional. I've cried on here. I've done all kinds of stuff. But the one thing I could say, like my mom always said about me, and so did my aunts and my uncles, at least with me, you know where you stand. I'm a real person. I'm not going to come at you with some fake nonsense and con you. Oh yeah, I'm your friend, and go and talk behind your back. I'm not that guy. It's not me. Yes, we do. And Rita says sending prayers. Another very nice, sweet person. We wished we could have another conference, but with death threats and everything else. My biggest fear, and I'm going to tell you the honest truth, dude. My biggest fear is not having a conference where someone comes and does something to me. And I'm not saying this like I'm, take one for the team. No, my worst fear was that they would come and start shooting or doing something and miss and hit some innocent person when they're trying to do it to me. I'd much rather you just get rid of me than murder some innocent human beings that were just there to have a good time. But this is the kind of crazy we're dealing with. So I just refuse to have I really wanted to go to Blondes and Booze conference. I was in the talks with them at the very beginning of it to having this conference. And they asked me, and they've moved on. They have like a whole slew of people that it's going to be a great conference. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. But unfortunately, I won't be there. And that's because I don't want something to happen, and not necessarily just to me or my family, but if I go there, they could come and cause problems, and I don't want to mess up their conference with something that's, of course, now they're after Krista too, because she's part of the conspiracy that Ike has made up in his fat little head. And boy, he's a fat little butterball shit, dude. Have you seen this guy?
Skinny fat.
I just committed a sin right there. Trying not to, I can't even. He's just a dumpling little tub of shit. I mean, there I go again.
It's hard.
It's hard to not I dislike the hell out of this person, but I don't hate you, and I still pray for you, and I hope that you turn from your evil ways. Although I will say there's a very slim chance of that. No pun intended. You're welcome, Kevin. We got to pray for our enemies, and I did yesterday, and I prayed. Hopefully, it would change their hearts, but it's up to God. And not watchers. He says hats very no that's very, I think is what he's trying to say, to be concerned. But these people are really messed up, yeah. And I'm messed up for saying things. I'm so they just keep talking about my mother, and it's just like getting really aggravating. And it just shows the mental illness that these people have. In particular, two of them. There's two men in particular that have this sick mental illness, and they just can't help themselves. But I have your information, not watcher. Let me know when you're free to have a conversation, because I'd like to give you a call and talk to you. Your girlfriend had reached out to me, so I'd like to talk to you. I like Philip. I ate dinner with Philip one time over there at Realities. Remember?
Yeah.
Very nice guy, beautiful family. He's a really, really good person.
Lively.
He says we will intend to. He's been at the conferences too. It sucks because we could have had one every year, but these people just couldn't handle it. Bringing the community together. Can't do that. Okay, man. So I got to get out of here because guess what? I got to record for Tuesday's show. And if you're here and you're listening, remember the show is going to be a continuation of what happened to Aaliyah. And then we're going to get, maybe if we have time, we'll get into what happened to Zena, which is some really weird stuff. Reminds me of what happened with my cousin Tim. Zena. I think toward the beginning of the show, I said it was Aaliyah that she had something happening, but this other person had some stuff happen that was really off the chain. So Canadian people, and I kind of did that too, because I told Anthony, I said, I want to do a show. We talk about Canada because I want to show people that I don't hate Canada. I want them to become part of the United States. I want each state in Canada to become like the 51st, 52nd, 53rd, 54th. I'm not trying to annex Canada by all just be one big state. That wouldn't be fair. They'd have this huge whatever. We'd have just a bunch of different states and be part of the United States. Right?
I don't know, because it seems like it would either be like one big blue state or like majority blue states if you break it up into like however many states.
It doesn't matter though. They've had years of brainwashing under Castro's son, and Trudeau is Castro's son. So by your thinking though, but you got to look at it too though. There are some good things. I'm not blue or red. I'm not purple. I'm not gonna lie. I'm more red than blue, for sure. But socialized medicine, if you do it correctly. I think that if we did it correctly in the United States, we could probably do it better than anybody in the world. Because I believe that anything that we put our minds to do and don't allow it to be corrupted, we can do it better than anybody, including socialized medicine, which I think needs to happen. But that being said, I'm not into socialism in any other way. There are good communists. They're called dead ones. But we're not talking about communism. We're talking about socialism. It's just the forerunner. It can be turned into communism, but socialism can also be turned into fascism too.
Yeah.
And those are twin pillars of evil. And when you stop and you really think about it, capitalism is evil in and of itself too. So you're talking about the three pillars of evil: fascism, communism, and capitalism. And people think, well, one of them communism obviously killed more than the other two put together. But capitalism has killed a lot of people in a lot of ways.
It's very dehumanizing.
It is. They all are. Yeah, and Bernard Fox makes a good point. That what I'm talking about though is socializing medicine in a way. They don't have to do it that way.
No,
it doesn't have to be that way. It's like Obamacare.
There's no reason for it to be that inefficient.
Yes. There's this red tape and they make it that way. So it doesn't have to be that way. I have a lot of ideas of ways that we could do things, but if I started talking about it and people started liking it, they'd kill me. They'd be like, oh, this guy's making things easy and it's becoming, popular. Because you know what they do is they throw the people that are in control of everything, and they're not you and me, right? I can almost guarantee you that people in the audience here is not us. What they do is they throw an issue out there and they make everybody fight over that issue and deal when the answer is really simple. They're always like, it's such a complex subject. Yeah, bullshit is not a complex subject. You make it that way. You do, so you can make everybody fight. Everything is black versus white and Hispanic people and Asian people and black people is all this. Why are we not just people trying to come together with solutions? If diversity is truly a strength, which it can be, but not in the way that they're using it. They're using it as division. We could come together and we could do a whole lot of things. We really could. But there are people, just like in this community, who after the second conference, they made it their life's mission to destroy us and to tear apart what we have built. And they used everything that they had at their disposal, every means at their disposal. Lies, treachery, subterfuge, sabotage. They used religion. They even lied about my politics, which I've been very upfront and forthcoming about. And they've attacked everything they could. Every which way they can, they attack. Clipping things, trying to say that I I made fun of the crucifixion, trying to say that I don't believe in God. Dude, I'm telling you, these people, they have all this time because they don't work and they all live on welfare. They're on disability. One of them's on disability, the fathead, potato head guy. He's on disability because he hit himself in the face with a wire cutters while he was breaking into a fence or some crap, and then claimed that he hurt himself. That came from his own family that told me that. So whatever you did, I don't know what you did. You did something on the job. You were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing, which sounds like that's the story of your life. But yet he can walk around all night throwing rocks and pretending like he's looking for Bigfoot.
And then collect disability.
Yeah. Yeah, you wear that Leviathan. Yeah, the thong. And they keep on with that crap. They keep blurting it out like a bunch of dumbasses. I've never once worn any pendant of any demon ever on this show. And then they said I melted it down. No, this is it right here. Go back and look at the shows because the shows, it's still there. Even if I melted it down, it would still be there. So go look. But in the end, when it all shakes out, we'll see who gets what, right? Keep pumping that lie. Keep pumping that conspiracy lie that you keep throwing out there. And you got this big reveal, and I'm hanging out with supporting some real evil people. People that support you are supporting evil people. You're the evil person, Potato Head Ike. You're the evil person that people are supporting. Yeah, stop supporting this evil guy. Stop going on his show, even if you're evil as hell and you're a communist like that other guy. Why would you go on that guy's show? Because you're not believing what he's lying to you, and he's telling you that it's not what really happened. He's not telling you the truth of what he's really in trouble for. But we know, don't we? We do. So one day, he's not going to be able to play around and harass and mess with people because he's 1/32nd Cherokee, and the Cherokee Nation are not prosecuting him like they should. That's a real thing. That's happening. That's really happening. So time to start writing some letters to the Cherokee Nation so that we can make sure that justice is served swiftly for you, because you're a predator, in my opinion, and you shouldn't be running around. Go clip that and put it on your little bullshit show. Huh? Let people know. I will come out and I will say it publicly what I think of you. I think you're one of the evilest people I've ever dealt with. And believe me, I used to deal with people from the underworld when I was in the nightclub business. And you have that ick on you when you're just talking to you. It makes you feel ill. And these people that are able to withstand that and go on his show and talk to them, what does that say about them? What does that say about the people that you've teamed up with this guy? Buying into his lie because of your hatred for us. saying and doing things that aren't fit for animals. You're one of the evilest people in this whole community. And you notice during this whole thing, all the evil people came together in one little clump. All there in a big ball, in a cabal. Yep. It's horrible. It's awful. All right. It is. It's terrible. But it is what it is. We had 4 winners tonight. Who won this one? Did somebody ask for the barbed wire? I can't remember.
I think that was Gil Sanchez.
No, Gil said he wanted the. This one is Mary, and this one is Gil. So we had 2 other winners. We had Paul and Fred.
Mm-hmm.
So you got these right here, Paul and Fred, and then we got one of these. So let me know what you want. Say it out here on the deal there, if you could, Paul or Fred, what you want, so I'll know. So to make sure that I get what you get what you want.
And make sure to include it in your email that again you send to giveaways at prtpodcast.com. Make sure you include like which hat you want specifically.
That's a good point. Caitlin McLeod, I take that you're probably on the left, but I'll say this. She said the Republicans put all the people, that wasn't Republicans, it was specifically the Reagan administration. It was Bush's idea. And I said this before, that Bush, the whole Bush family is rotten to the core. They are absolutely evil. And they had a lot to do with the towers, I can tell you that. Not good people. But you know who were their buddies? The Clintons. So that was their friends, and they got a body count as high as freaking Jim Jones. I'm going to tell you this, man. There are no good guys or bad guys. They're just different shades of bad when it comes to all of that. But I'm not going to argue with what's happening right now because we got cancer as a nation. And grab these, put them back over there. And when you have something like that, it has to be cut out. Simple as that. All right, man. I'll let you go, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everybody who donated. We greatly appreciate the donations. Everybody was really, really kind and generous tonight. Thank you so much for being a part of what PRT is and being the best part of what makes the show what it is, which is you guys. And let me know in the comments section, too, if you want more of these impromptu lives where we talk about stuff on off days. Or if you want to see us go out into the field and do more of that, I'm planning on that as the weather warms up. Got to get my boots so they won't be able to bite me, the snakes. And we're going to do some tromping around out there because there is some serious stuff happening. And I want to be able to show you what we're finding. Very interesting. All right, folks. And to all you haters out there that are watching with your gritted your teeth, you're like this, you're so mad, you're just so angry. You're so angry. And you just gnash your teeth, but you can't stop watching. I don't watch your shows, but you watch mine and you give us views. And then you go and you clip the little clips that you can try to use or whatever. It's funny because you know that YouTube Studio can show you who's clipping your stuff. Right, Billy the Kid?
Yeah.
Right, Mike?
Billy the Kid.
A.K.A. Mike McKee.
Sarah Bear.
All
them other accounts y'all use.
Yeah, we know what you
mean, we've seen, like, y'all have clipped our show, like, hundreds of times just right there on YouTube Studio. YouTube shows you.
I'll even show you a reenactment of what it looks like when he does it. Here it is right here. Well, these aren't really thick enough. They got to be the retard glasses, but here he is right here with his hat on. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we'll get that one. Oh, my 15 listeners are going to love this shit. Oh, yeah. What's that smell? Oh, good Lord, I stink. Wow. Yeah. That's you. Coming, mother. Poopikins, are you looking at porn again? No, I was just clipping things to show people that Josh Turner's the Antichrist. Oh, okay. Carry on. Thank you for always having my back, Mom, and enabling all my bullshit. Yeah. Would you like some SpaghettiOs? That's all we have left because we don't work. Sure. That's you, dude. Anyways, folks, enough laughing at the little pig-headed guy. I mean, what does he have? He has his buddy Petticourt that is, that guy plays like several different people. Like he'll have a call in and it's that guy every time. Like there's this guy MJ that calls. It's really him. It's his friend. He has like 2 or 3 friends and he uses them.
Should be a voice actor
to be all of his call-in people. Not really. They don't even change their voice. It's the same voice. It's the same guy. It's unbelievable. I mean, I can't even. But people are stupid. The 50 or so people that he's conned into believing his bullshit. But you know what he does though that he's really good at is mass reporting. Him and the roofer and the Klansman up there in the LBL, the beady-eyed guy, they get together and they mass report us. So that's why we're having the problems we have. So, hopefully, YouTube, let my people go. Stop it. Leave us alone. Don't you see? Those are the true rednecks, not us. We have done nothing wrong to you. Please. Do it in Gandalf's voice. Let us pass. Gollum over there. The most unhealthy looking dude. I don't even know. And he'll probably live forever. The demons sustain their own. They do. They help them to live long lives. All right, folks. I'm out. I got to do the recording, man. I'll be ready for Tuesday. All right, go take a bath. I'll see you guys. Good night.